Hi guys, and welcome to Gentle History for Deep Sleep. Tonight we step into the blue-grey edge of a Stone Age evening, where the sky has lowered itself almost to the ground and the snow is coming sideways, whispering at first, then hissing like a patient animal. You're tired, cold, and carrying more worry than luggage, because luggage, tragically, has not been invented yet. Ahead, a cave mouth opens in the hillside, smelling of old smoke, wet stone, hides, and the faint musk of creatures that may or may not have moved out. You probably won't survive this without your group, which is rude but historically fair. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as the snow gathers around your ankles, tell us where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights and let the cave mouth become the last visible shape in the storm. You trudge toward it with your shoulders hunched and your hands tucked under a fur wrap stiffened by frozen breath. The slope behind you is already blurred. The wind pushes into your face, because apparently even weather enjoys variety. Your boots, stitched from hide and packed with grass for warmth, slip on hidden stones under the powder. Your legs ache, your jaw aches from clenching. Your nose runs, then stings, then becomes something you would rather not think about. It is not a clean arch with a perfect fire already glowing inside. It is a rough break in stone, with a low lip and frozen mud near the entrance. A few members of your band reach it first. They do not rush inside blindly. Instead, they pause, sniff, listen, and stare into the dimness. Someone lifts a spear. Someone else crouches and touches the ground. There are old tracks near the entrance, half filled with snow. Animal tracks, not fresh. Maybe, possibly fox, possibly wolf, possibly something that would prefer not to share a bedroom. In the Stone Age, caves are not automatically homes. Many are used by animals long before humans decide to borrow them. Bears, hyenas in some regions, wolves, and big cats all claimed caves across the deep past. That is a mainstream historical fact. People and animals often competed for the same shelters, where a dry roof could mean dawn. One of the older women throws a stone into the cave. It clatters, rolls, and stops. No snarl answers. No irritated prehistoric landlord comes charging out. Another person tosses in a smoking twist of dry grass, coaxed from embers carried in a bark container. The smoke drifts inward, curls, and vanishes into the dark. You wait. The cave seems to breathe back only cold air, so you enter. At first, the darkness feels thick enough to touch. Your eyes adjust slowly, finding shapes in grey. The floor slopes inward, uneven but mostly dry beyond the entrance. That matters. Dry ground is wealth. Dry ground is comfort. Dry ground is the difference between sleep and a long night of lying awake, while cold leaks upward through your bones like an unpaid debt. You step around a shallow puddle rimmed with ice. Your breath clouds in front of you, pale and brief. People come in behind you, carrying wood, skins, stone tools, dried meat, and the stubbornness of those who have done this before. Nobody calls it camping. Nature is currently trying to sandblast your face with ice crystals. Still, the cave offers what the open world cannot: a break from the wind, a ceiling above the snow, walls that hold a little darkness steady. A few hands clear a place for the hearth. It cannot be too close to the entrance, where gusts will scatter sparks and steal heat. It cannot be too deep, where smoke might thicken and make breathing miserable. It must sit where air can move, but not too much. This is the hard-earned science of bodies that remember which hollow filled with smoke and which corner stayed dry. Historians still argue whether early cave use was mostly planned seasonal shelter, emergency refuge, ritual space, or some shifting mixture of all three. But inside this storm, the debate feels less tidy. Tonight, It is shelter because the sky allows no other option. The first fire is small. Embers are teased awake with dry grass, fungus, and splinters shaved from a branch kept close under someone's cloak. You're grateful when one tiny orange thread catches. It glows. It fades. A hand cups around it, protecting it from the cave's breath. Someone leans close and blows, slow and careful. Smoke arrives before heat. It smells sharp, damp, and earthy. Your eyes water. The little flame bends, straightens, and licks along a twig. Soon another twig catches. Shadows climb the walls in trembling strips. Outside, the blizzard thickens. The entrance is no longer a hole in the hillside, but a shifting curtain of white. Snowflakes whirl past in chaotic swarms, vanishing beyond the firelight. The wind moans across the cave mouth, sometimes low like a tired horn, sometimes high and thin like a bone flute badly played by a ghost with no lessons. You settle near the hearth, not too close, because sparks can be lively little villains, and not too far, because cold has already made a persuasive argument. Choosing where to sleep is not casual. You look for a patch of ground that is raised, flat enough, and away from drips. You notice where the ceiling darkens with old soot. You notice where the floor is stained from past fires. You notice the place where wind sneaks along the wall, invisible until it finds your wet sleeve and kisses it, with all the tenderness of a frozen fish. That place is rejected, very wise. Others lay down branches, grass and skins, making the first rough boundary between stone and bodies. There is even a quirky possibility that in some Stone Age shelters, people used plants with insect-repelling qualities in their bedding. Archaeologists have found very ancient plant bedding in southern Africa, with evidence that some leaves may have helped deter pests. Tonight your mattress may be grass, hide, moss, and optimism. You lower yourself onto a folded skin while the fire grows from a nervous glow into a small, working heart. Heat reaches your palms first, then your cheeks. Your back remains cold, and your feet are still privately discussing betrayal. Someone checks a child's hands. Someone places tools near the wall. Someone listens again toward the entrance. Because the storm is not the only thing outside. For now, the cave has accepted you, or at least has not objected. The first sparks rise, the first bedding is spread, the first long breath leaves your chest, and while the blizzard seals the world beyond the entrance, you begin to learn what every sleeping place in this ancient night must teach. Safety is not a feeling you find. It is something you build, piece by piece, in firelight, with cold fingers, while the dark waits just beyond the glow. The first hour inside the cave is not about sleeping yet. It is about reading. You read stone, smoke, damp, ash, and tracks. You read the ceiling for cracks and the floor for old stains. You read the cave the way another age might read a map. Because the cave has memory, and tonight its memory may keep you alive. The fire is still small, so the walls appear in pieces. A bulge of rock glows amber, then disappears when the flame dips. A hanging ridge throws a long shadow that looks alarmingly like a crouching animal, until someone pokes it with a spear and proves it is merely geology. You breathe through your nose and taste mineral cold. The cave smells layered. Fresh smoke floats near the hearth. Beneath it lies older smoke, bitter and soft, settled into the roof over many fires. Under that is wet limestone, old earth, hide, human sweat, and a faint animal musk that makes everyone pretend to be calm. You crouch near the wall and place your palm against the stone. It is cold, but not equally cold everywhere. Some areas sweat with moisture, slick enough to shine. Others are dry and dusty. The dry places are precious. Damp stone can steal warmth all night, soak bedding, and make a sleeping body shiver before dawn. The group avoids the glittering patches where water beads and gathers. A slow drip taps somewhere deeper inside, counting the storm in patient drops. One of the older hunters holds a burning branch upward and watches the smoke. It streams along the ceiling, curls against a low ridge, then slides toward the entrance. Good, not perfect, because nothing in this cave has a customer care desk, but good enough for now. Smoke that pools overhead can sting eyes and fill lungs. Smoke that finds a path outward lets the hearth work without turning the shelter into a choking grey bowl. Stone Age people did not need modern chemistry to understand bad air. Their bodies told them, coughing told them, tears told them. That is one solid historical fact many prehistoric caves and rock shelters preserve soot marks from repeated fires, showing that people returned to these spaces and used hearths again and again. Those blackened ceilings are not decorations. They are the fingerprints of warmth, meals, night watches, tool work, and conversation. Tonight, when you see the dark staining above the chosen hearth, you know someone, perhaps your own grandmother, perhaps someone sat here before and coaxed flame against the same winter dark. You move farther in, but not too far. The cave narrows after several body lengths. Beyond the firelight, darkness gathers into a thick, soundless pocket. Nobody is eager to sleep there. A deep cave can be colder, damper, and stranger than the entrance chamber. It can hide holes, animals, loose stones, and the kind of silence that makes your imagination start composing dramatic farewell speeches. The best place is often a compromise far enough from the wind, close enough to light, near enough to the group, and not beneath anything that looks as if it has been waiting 20,000 years to fall on your head. A child points at marks in the clay floor near the side wall. To you, they are smudges. To someone more experienced, they are messages. A paw dragged here, a bird nested there. Rodents have nibbled in that corner. The group does not panic, but they adjust. Food is moved away from the wall. Bedding is not placed near small openings where tiny teeth and quick feet may appear. In the past, caves could be shared in awkward shifts, humans by firelight, foxes after abandonment, bears in colder months, owls above, insects always. A quirky little tidbit, and honestly not the most charming one, is that archaeologists sometimes learn about ancient cave life from coprolites, which are fossilized droppings. Yes, bedtime history has brought you ancient poop, very elegant, but these remains can reveal whether animals or humans used a shelter, what they ate, and sometimes even what parasites came along for the ride. So, when someone in your group wrinkles their nose at a corner and decides not to sleep there, they may be practicing the ancient art of avoiding someone else's bathroom. The fire brightens, shadows shrink, then jump back. More of the cave appears. The ceiling is uneven, with pockets where smoke may sit. The wall beside you carries faint scratches, perhaps from tools, perhaps from claws, perhaps from stone rubbing against stone when ice once shifted the world outside. You do not make confident claims. You are tired, and the cave does not label its exhibits. Still, every mark seems to ask for attention. Scholars still debate how often people slept deep inside decorated caves compared with using entrance areas for daily living, and the answer may differ from place to place. Some caves were practical shelters, some seem to have held special meanings, some probably change roles across seasons, generations, and storms. Here, tonight, you're in an entrance chamber, and the reason is simple. It is dry enough, wide enough, smoky but tolerable, and reachable before the blizzard erases the path outside. A woman with a bundle of brush begins sweeping loose grit from a low patch near the hearth. Not sweeping with a broom from a shop, of course. More a handful of twigs tied by habit and hope. She clears sharp flakes of stone, old ash, and splinters of bone. A man tests the ground with his heel. Another places a flat stone near the fire to reflect heat and keep embers contained. Nothing here is random. Even the smallest placement matters. A sleeping foot too close to the hearth may wake with a burn. A sleeping child too close to the entrance may wake chilled. A tool left under a hide may announce itself painfully at midnight. The snow outside muffles the world. Sound changes. The cave amplifies tiny things: a cough, a scrape, the crack of a twig, the wet click of someone's tongue against dry lips. You hear the fire drawing breath. You hear skins being shaken and spread. You hear someone knock loose ice from a bundle of wood. The smell of smoke thickens, then thins as the draft steadies. You begin to understand that sleep here is not simply closing your eyes. It is negotiation with rock. You choose the driest rise, the safest distance, the best airflow, the angle where smoke will not crawl into your face. You trust the old soot marks, the elder's hand on the wall, the child's sharp eyes, the hunter's reading of tracks. The cave becomes less like a hollow and more like a large, cold creature whose moods can be learned, and as the first true bedding is carried toward the chosen dry patch, you glance once more at the ceiling, the walls, the smoke, and the dark beyond the flame. The storm presses at the entrance, but inside, the group has begun to turn stone into shelter, not by conquering it, but by noticing it carefully enough to survive another night. The hearth begins as a little argument with the dark. At first it is only a low cluster of embers, shivering orange under twigs, as if it is not entirely convinced it wants the job. Then someone feeds it a sliver of dry branch, then another. And slowly the flame stands up. It stretches into yellow tongues, bends toward the draught, and licks the blackened stones that have been set around it. The cave walls lean closer in the new light, faces warm, hands open, shoulders lower by the smallest, most grateful amount. You sit near enough to feel heat reach your knees, your wet leggings steam faintly, releasing the smell of hide, smoke, old sweat, and snow melt. It is not luxurious. No one is handing you a scented candle called Winter Mammoth Calm, but after the white violence outside, this small centre of flame feels almost royal. It gives light, warmth, and a place for eyes to rest. It draws the group into a circle without anyone needing to announce a meeting. The fire must be fed carefully. Too little fuel, and it sinks into red ash while the cold creeps in like an uninvited relative. Too much fuel, and smoke thickens under the ceiling, making everyone cough and glare, which is not ideal for community bonding. Thick branches are saved. Small sticks go first. Damp pieces are placed nearby, not on the flame, so they can dry before burning. Someone turns a log with a pointed stick, sparks leap up, brief and bright, then vanish like tiny stars that got impatient. A mainstream historical fact rests in the glow before you controlled fire was one of humanity's great survival tools long before the period most people picture when they hear Stone Age caves. By the time Ice Age groups occupied many shelters in Europe, Asia, and Africa, fire was already an old companion. It cooked food, hardened wooden points, warmed bodies, discouraged some animals, extended working hours after sunset, and made darkness less absolute. Tonight, every one of those gifts matters, but fire is also needy. It is not a switch. It cannot be taken for granted. It must be watched like a slightly dangerous baby. Someone keeps embers alive under ash. Someone separates the driest fuel from the wet pile. Someone knows which wood smokes badly and which burns hot, in a blizzard. Finding new dry fuel is hard, so the group treats each branch as if it has personal value. Because it does. A stick is a little piece of tomorrow's warmth. The cave brightens in pulses. Shadows tremble across the walls, making hollows deepen and vanish. Your own fingers look strange in the light, reddish at the tips, cracked at the knuckles, dark under the nails. When you spread them toward the flame, heat prickles your skin almost painfully. When you pull them back, cold closes around them again. The body's always negotiating. A little closer, a little farther. Warm the palms, turn the feet, dry the hem. Do not singe the fur. Do not fall asleep with your hair too near the sparks, unless you want to become the evening's cautionary tale. The group places stones around the hearth, not as a neat fireplace from a cosy cottage, but as a practical boundary. Stones hold and reflect heat. They help contain embers. They mark where children should not crawl and where tired feet should not slide. Some stones crack when heated, especially if damp, so the elders choose with care. A sudden pop from a wet stone can send sparks and chips outward. Everyone flinches when the fire spits. Then, after a breath, everyone pretends they did not flinch. Very dignified, very ancient, very human. A quirky tidbit flickers here too in some prehistoric sites. Archaeologists have found heated stones that may have been used like portable warmth or cooking aids, placed into pits, skins, or containers to transfer heat. Imagine a Stone Age hot water bottle, except it is a rock, and if you choose badly it may crack or burn you. Comfort, yes, but with terms and conditions. The hearth is also an alarm system, not a perfect one. Of course, there is no polite chime, no blinking notification saying, "Large carnivore approaching from entrance. Please remain calm." But light changes animal behaviour. Smoke carries human scent outward. A flame at the cave mouth may discourage certain visitors, or at least announce that this hollow is currently occupied by noisy, spear-holding creatures who have opinions. The fire makes the group visible to itself and visible to the night. Safety is never total, but the odds shift a little in the Stone Age. A little is often enough. Researchers continue to disagree about how early humans first carried fire from place to place, rather than making it fresh each time, and how often embers were transported during daily movement. You can feel why the question matters. Tonight, if the embers had died during the march through snow, the cave would be colder, darker, and far less forgiving. Fire-making tools may exist in your world, but they demand skill, dryness, and patience. A carried ember, wrapped and guarded, is like a secret sun in a box. Now that secret sun is awake on the floor, people begin to arrange themselves around it by habit. Elders sit where the smoke passes least. Children are brought close, then nudged back from sparks. Those with wet outer wraps turn them slowly, steaming one side, then the other. The smell grows rich and complicated resin from wood, damp hide, old ash, thawing mud, and the faint sweetness of something edible warming near the coals. Your stomach notices before your mind does. It tightens and makes a quiet complaint. The flame makes time behave differently. Outside, the blizzard is endless and without shape. Inside, the fire creates moments. Feed it. Watch it catch. Let it settle. Push the embers inward. Add a branch. Move the smoking end. Protect the glow. These repeated acts become a rhythm soft enough to sleep beside, but important enough to keep someone awake. One person is chosen for the first watch, though chosen may simply mean they are least exhausted, or most stubborn, or already sitting up with the expression of someone who would rather not discuss feelings. They keep a spear within reach and a pile of small fuel beside them. Their job is not heroic in the dramatic sense. They do not stand at the entrance with hair blowing in the storm like a carved legend. They sit, feed the fire, listen, cough occasionally, and try not to nod off. Survival often looks less like bravery and more like staying awake when every bone begs for sleep. You lean closer and feel the heat touch your cheeks. The cave beyond the hearth remains cold, but the circle of light has personality now. It snaps, it sighs, it paints everyone in amber. It turns fear into something smaller, not gone, but held at a distance. You understand why fire becomes more than a tool in human memory. It feels alive because it behaves alive. It eats. It breathes. It dies if neglected. It gives comfort and danger from the same bright mouth. The storm presses harder outside. Snow blows into the entrance and melts at the edge of the warmer air. The black curtain of night turns white, then black again, depending on the wind. But inside, the hearth has become a small sun laid carefully on stone, and all sleep will orbit it. Before bedding can be trusted, before food can soften, before stories can wander through the dark, this bright little roommate must be persuaded to stay. Now the cave begins to become a bedroom, though that word feels almost too tidy for what is happening. No one unfolds a blanket with a delicate snap. No one fluffs a pillow. There is no lavender spray, no bedside table, no charming lamp shaped like a moon. Instead, hands move through dim firelight, carrying hides, bundles of grass, moss, reeds, bark strips, and whatever else can stand between a living body and a floor made of ancient indifference. You reach for a bundle that was kept under a skin during the march, protected as carefully as food. It smells of dry grass, smoke, and faint mould. Not exactly luxury hotel, unless the hotel has recently been occupied by reindeer and a damp uncle. Still, the bundle is useful, very useful. The cave floor may look solid and quiet, but it is a thief. It drinks warmth from any body that lies directly on it, even near the hearth. Stone remains cold underneath, patient and greedy. So the first rule of sleeping here is not beauty, it is layers. You help spread branches along the chosen patch of dry ground. They are not thick enough to make a real mattress, but they lift the bedding a little and make small pockets of trapped air. Over them go grasses and reeds, shaken loose and patted down. Moss fills dips. A hide is pulled across the top, fur side up where it is dry enough. Then adjusted again because a lump under your hip in the Stone Age is still a lump under your hip. And nobody becomes spiritually superior to discomfort just because history is old. A well-supported fact from archaeology is that some prehistoric groups built deliberate sleeping surfaces rather than simply dropping onto bare ground. At sites such as Border Cave in southern Africa, researchers have identified very ancient plant bedding, showing that humans were arranging grasses and leaves for rest tens of thousands of years ago. That matters tonight. Because your bed is not accidental, it is made, judged, corrected, and improved by people who know that a poor bed can drain strength as surely as hunger. You kneel and press your palm into the bedding. It gives a little beneath it. The ground remains firm. You add more grass near the shoulders and hips, the places that complain first. Someone nearby scrapes away a sharp flake of stone. Another person shakes a skin hard enough to send dust and tiny bits of old grass into the firelight. They float for a moment like golden insects before vanishing into smoke. The hides are heavy, some are stiff at the edges, darkened by use and smoke. They carry the scent of animals long gone, the oil from human hands, the sourness of damp weather, and the comforting bitterness of many fires. You pull one across your knees and feel its weight settle. Weight is not warmth by itself, but it helps hold warmth near you. It presses you into the bedding. It tells your shivering muscles that perhaps, just perhaps, the world has not completely forgotten mercy. There is an odd little detail from deep human housekeeping that feels surprisingly modern in some ancient bedding layers. Burned plant remains suggest people may have refreshed or even burned old bedding to reduce pests and smells. Imagine tidying the bedroom by setting yesterday's mattress on fire. Efficient, dramatic, and very difficult to explain to a landlord. But here, it makes sense. Old grasses collect insects, fleas, lice, dust, rot, and crumbs. If the group has time and fuel, they may replace them. If not, everyone develops a generous relationship with itching. Specialists still wrestle with the question of how often Ice Age people reuse the same bedding areas and caves, and whether certain sleeping places belong to particular families, elders, or task groups. Tonight, you can feel both possibilities, Some habits seem fixed. The older woman chooses a protected patch near a warm stone without asking. A child curls where a parent can reach them in the dark. A hunter places himself nearer the entrance, not because he enjoys cold drafts, but because someone must be first to hear trouble. Beds reveal relationships, even when no one speaks. You settle onto the prepared surface and immediately notice its imperfections. A branch presses near your ribs. A cold hollow waits under one thigh. Grass tickles the back of your neck. Your toes, despite every effort, are still cold enough to file a formal complaint. You shift. The hide beneath you wrinkles. You shift again. Someone beside you sighs with the weary sound of a person who's discovered the exact same problem and decided to suffer nobly for 3 breaths before fixing it. The fire pops, a spark leaps, lands near a bedding edge, and is slapped out at once. Everyone pays attention to sparks. Dry grass makes a fine bed and an enthusiastic disaster. The hearth must warm you without eating your mattress, which is a delicate social arrangement between flame and common sense. A flat stone is nudged closer to block wandering embers. The firekeeper watches with narrowed eyes, as if the hearth is a pet that has already ruined one rug. Your bed is placed not with the head closest to the entrance, where icy air spills in, but angled slightly toward the fire. The group thinks in invisible currents. Heat travels, smoke drifts, cold pools, bodies radiate warmth. A good sleeping place uses all of this. The child next to you is tucked between 2 adults. An elder receives an extra folded skin under the back. Someone with wet clothing lies nearer the fire for a while, then must move before sparks or smoke become too much. Every arrangement is a compromise, and every compromise has a smell. You notice how loud bedding can be, reeds whisper, dry grass crackles, hide creaks when knees bend. A bone needle rolls and clicks against stone before someone snatches it up. The cave magnifies these domestic sounds until they become part of the storm's softer twin inside. Outside, wind roars and snow scours the entrance. Inside, the bedding sighs, rustles, and settles under human weight. There is tenderness in the work. Though nobody makes a speech about tenderness, a parent shakes snow from a child's wrap. A young person gives up a better patch of moss for an elder. Someone tucks a folded strip of fur around another person's feet, then pretends it was no great kindness. In a world without central heating, affection often looks like insulation. Your body slowly begins to believe in the bed. Not fully. Let us not get dramatic. You're still lying in a cave during a blizzard, wrapped in animal skins, trying to ignore the possibility that a fox has opinions about your food bundle. But the sharpness of the ground is softened. The cold no longer bites upward quite so easily. Your spine finds a line it can accept. Your breathing slows. The stone beneath you remains older than imagination. Above you, smoke stains the ceiling. Around you, bodies continue arranging, muttering, turning, padding, testing. This is not sleep yet. It is the construction of permission to sleep, layer by layer, grass by hide, moss by memory. The group persuades the cave floor to be less cruel, and as the fire brightens along the wall, your rough bed gathers your weight and holds it, just enough, while the storm keeps trying to enter and fails. Once the bedding is settled, the people settle too, and you discover that a Stone Age cave at night is not a place of elegant personal space. It is a place of elbows, knees, damp fur, shared breath, and practical closeness. Your sleeping area is less like a private room, and more like a warm human puzzle assembled by tired people in smoky light. You lie on your side because lying flat on your back takes too much space. And space is a luxury the blizzard has not included in tonight's package. Someone's shoulder presses near yours. A child's foot finds your calf. An older man grumbles softly when a bundle is moved too close to his ribs. A woman reaches over 2 bodies to drag a hide across a gap where cold air slips in. No one apologizes much. Apologies are for people with sofas. The group arranges itself with a logic that is partly planned and partly old habit. Children do not sleep at the edge. They are tucked into the warmer middle, where adult bodies block drafts and wandering sparks are less likely to reach them. Elders are placed where the ground is driest and the smoke thinnest, if such a blessed miracle can be found. Those keeping watch stay nearer the fire and the cave mouth. People who know how to read tracks, handle spears, or wait quickly are not buried at the back under 3 blankets and a snoring cousin. The arrangement is comfort, care, and defence all braided together. One widely accepted piece of social history is that small hunter-gatherer bands depended intensely on cooperation. Food sharing, childcare, fire tending, tool repair, and protection were not charming extras. They were survival systems in harsh Ice Age environments. A lone person was vulnerable in ways that are almost hard to exaggerate. A group could pool warmth, memory, skill, and attention. Tonight, as the storm seals the world outside, the truth of that is pressing gently against your ribs in the form of another human body. You feel warmth begin to build where shoulders meet. At first the closeness is awkward. Someone's hair tickles your face. Someone smells strongly of smoke and wet hide. Someone's stomach makes a noise that would be rude in a quiet room and is somehow perfectly normal here. Gradually, though, the pile of bodies becomes a living shelter inside the stone shelter. Heat gathers under hides. Breath warms the small dark spaces between faces and fur. Your own shivering eases, not because the cave has become warm, but because warmth is being lent to you. A peculiar but true little side note from studies of cold weather survival is that shared body heat can be life-saving, yet it depends on staying dry and insulated. Cuddle all you like, dear listener, but if everyone is soaked and lying on bare stone, the romance leaves rather quickly. In this cave, closeness works because bedding lifts you from the ground, hides trap air, and the fire keeps dampness at bay. The system is not glamorous, it is effective. Sometimes history is just people discovering that warmth likes company. Debate continues over how sleeping arrangements in Ice Age shelters reflected social structure. Were spaces strongly divided by family, age, status, or task? Did respected elders receive the safest spots? Did visiting groups merge together during storms? Or keep subtle boundaries even while sharing a fire? Evidence is fragmentary, because affection, irritation, and personal habits do not fossilize neatly. Still, the sleeping bodies around you suggest that order exists. It may not be spoken, but everyone seems to know where they belong. The cave creates a temporary geography of people. Near the hearth are those who must feed the flame. Behind them, a curve of sleepers grows around the warmth. Farther back lie stored bundles, spare wood, and tools that should not be stepped on in the dark. A narrow path remains open toward the entrance, because if trouble comes, no one wants to untangle 6 sleepers before reaching a spear. The back wall is avoided by the smallest children, partly because of damp, partly because of darkness, and partly because even brave Stone Age families understand that children will invent monsters where the firelight ends. You are aware of your own place in this arrangement, not the youngest, not the oldest, not the first watcher, not the one trusted with the best spear. You're somewhere in the middle, useful enough to carry fuel, old enough to endure discomfort, lucky enough to be covered by one edge of a shared hide. That edge keeps sliding off your hip. You tug it back carefully, trying not to wake the person beside you, who is either asleep or performing a deeply convincing impression of a fallen log. Privacy has almost no meaning here. Bodies cough, scratch, shift, mutter, and breathe. A child whispers that the wind sounds like teeth. Someone answers that teeth do not sing so badly. A few people laugh softly, and the laughter moves through the group like a small extra flame. Then quiet returns. The storm fills the entrance with its endless rushing sound. In modern life, sleep often means retreat your own bed, your own pillow, your own side, your own very serious opinion about room temperature. Here, sleep is shared labour. You make warmth together. You make safety together. Even silence is communal. The person beside you must trust that you will not kick the fire in your sleep. You must trust that the watcher will notice if the wind changes, or if a shape moves at the entrance, or if smoke begins to hang too low under the roof. The smells thicken as people warm beneath hides. Smoke clings to hair. Damp leather releases a sour note. Grass gives off a dry, crushed scent. Human skin, animal fur, and ash combine into something that would absolutely not sell as a candle. Yet, after enough cold, it smells like shelter. Your nose learns to accept it. Your body learns faster. You feel a knee against the back of your thighs. A child rolls into the hollow near your stomach, and someone murmurs without waking. You adjust your arm under your head. The bedding crackles. The hide over you lifts as another person slides beneath it, then settles again, trapping a little more warmth. Irritation rises for half a heartbeat, then fades. The added body makes the air warmer. Annoying, yes. Useful, also yes. Stone Age life is rich in these emotional complexities. Outside, the blizzard rages with an almost personal enthusiasm. Inside, the group tightens into its sleeping shape. The firelight moves over closed eyes, lined faces, small hands, patched clothing, and the curve of a spear shaft resting near an alert palm. No one has conquered winter. No one is comfortable in the modern sense, but warmth is gathering in the spaces between you, and that is enough for now. Your eyelids grow heavy, then open again when the wind screams across the cave mouth. A few heads lift. The watcher leans toward the entrance. Nothing comes in except snow dust and noise. The heads lower. The shared hide settles around you. The cave breathes smoke and shadow, and the human puzzle holds together, packed not by sentiment but by need, kinship, habit, and the oldest comfort of all, another warm body nearby in the dark. The blizzard has a voice now, and once you begin to listen, it seems to have more than one. At the cave mouth, wind rushes past the stone lip with a long hollow moan, then breaks into sharper cries when it strikes a jagged edge outside. Snow hisses against rock. Ice pellets tick softly, like tiny bones thrown from a hand every so often. A gust drives powder inward, and the entrance disappears behind a white whirl, then opens again into blackness. You lie still beneath the hide, feeling the group breathe around you. No one speaks for a while. The fire snaps, a child sniffles, someone shifts their weight, and the grass bedding whispers under them. Then the wind rises so suddenly that several people lift their heads at once. It sounds almost alive, almost close enough to touch. The cave takes the noise and changes it, stretching it along the walls until it becomes deeper, stranger, less like weather and more like a huge animal grieving outside. You know it is wind. Mostly. Your sensible mind says wind. Your tired body says teeth, wings, spirits, wolves, every possible bad idea wearing snow, in the deep past. Winter storms could trap small groups for days, especially in cold glacial landscapes where sudden weather made travel dangerous. That is a reliable historical point. Ice Age people were not helpless before winter, but storms could still force them into shelters, delay hunting, and make movement costly. A cave was not merely scenic. It could be the difference between waiting out the sky and being erased by it. The entrance is watched closely because sound can lie. Snow muffles footsteps. Wind covers cracks and rustles. A large animal might pass close and leave no clear warning until it is nearly inside. A person outside might shout and not be heard. The storm both hides you and blinds you. The fire casts a warm circle, but beyond it the cave mouth pulses with shadows, white spray, and darkness. The watcher sits with knees drawn up, spear across their lap, face turned toward the storm. They are wrapped in fur, but their cheeks shine with cold. Every few breaths, they lean slightly, listening for a pattern that does not belong to weather, a scrape, a snort, a paw on stone, a human cry. You try to listen too, but the blizzard fills every space in your skull. There are layers to the sound outside. The highest layer is snow against stone, a soft scratching whisper that never rests. Below that is the wind, sometimes steady, sometimes lunging. Beneath both, you think you hear cracking from trees or ice somewhere down the slope. A low boom rolls through the night. Perhaps a branch has split under snow. Perhaps ice has fallen from a cliff. Perhaps the storm is rearranging the world without asking permission, which is very on brand for weather. One strange detail from northern environments is that snow itself can change how sound travels. Fresh snow absorbs noise, making landscapes feel unnervingly quiet, while hard-crusted snow and frozen air can carry sharp sounds farther than expected. So the world beyond the entrance may be both muffled and suddenly loud. A distant crack may seem near. A nearby movement may vanish. Not exactly helpful when you're trying to decide whether the darkness contains a wolf or just a dramatic bush. Some researchers question how Stone Age groups interpreted such storm sounds within their wider beliefs about animals, ancestors, and unseen forces. Were the voices of wind and cave understood only as natural danger, or also as messages, moods, or presences? No one can ask the sleepers whose smoke mark these ceilings, but you can feel how easily sound becomes meaning in the dark. A cave in a blizzard is not silent shelter, it is a resonating body, and you are lying inside it. The cave mouth is like a breathing black curtain. Snow rushes across it in sheets, then thins to reveal a small slice of outside. There is no horizon, no moon, no familiar path. The world where you walked only hours ago has vanished. Trees, stones, tracks, and hollows are being covered under one white skin. The entrance is the only boundary between here and there, warmth and exposure. Human circle and storm, it feels both protective and fragile. The firelight reaches only part way to the opening. Beyond that, darkness folds in layers. Now and then the wind blows smoke toward the entrance, and the smoke twists outward, briefly visible as grey ribbons before the snow tears it apart. You smell cold whenever the draft shifts clean, metallic and wet, cutting through the heavier scent of hide and ash. It touches your nostrils like a blade turned flat. A child whispers again, asking if the storm can come in. Someone answers softly that it can try. That is all. It can try. This appears to satisfy the child, or at least makes them quiet. The answer settles into you as well. The storm can try. The stone can hold. The fire can live. The group can wait. You turn your face toward the entrance, and your eyes begin finding shapes in the moving dark. There is a crouched form near the left edge. No, only a rock. There is a long neck lifting in the snow. No, a branch tossing in the wind. There are eyes near the ground. No, sparks reflected on wet stone. Your brain is working hard, perhaps too hard, to protect you. It would rather mistake a shadow for a predator than a predator for a shadow. Sensible, if exhausting. The watcher adds a stick to the hearth. Flame rises. Everyone's faces glow briefly brighter. The cave walls reveal their curves, then retreat. The wind drops for a few heartbeats, and the sudden quiet feels even more alarming than the noise. In that pause you hear water dripping deeper inside, a sleeper's breath rattling, the small wet crackle of a thawing boot near the fire. Then the storm returns with a roar, as if offended by the idea of peace. Outside, some animal calls may be impossible to identify. Wolves can howl across snowy country, but wind can stretch and distort sound. Foxes bark, owls call, branches groan, ice breaks. Your band has heard these things before, yet certainty is never complete. You imagine creatures beyond the glow, noses lifted, catching smoke, meat, human scent. You imagine them turning away. You hope they turn away. The cave is not quiet, and so your sleep will not be quiet. It will be a sleep stitched through with listening. You will drift, wake, drift again. The wind will enter your dreams. The snow hiss will become whispered words. The crack of ice will become a footstep. The fire will snap and your hand will twitch under the hide. This is how rest happens when the world outside is still in motion. Still. The sound slowly becomes familiar. Not safe, exactly. Familiar. The longest moan of wind returns again and again from the same stone edge. The soft hiss of snow stays constant. The deep thud outside grows rare. Your body learns the pattern, and anything repeated long enough can become a lullaby, even if it is a fairly aggressive lullaby with frostbite ambitions. You close your eyes. Behind your lids the fire still glows red. The cave mouth breathes white and black. White and black. Around you, the sleeping bodies remain close. The watcher remains upright. The storm keeps speaking beyond the stone, but its voice is farther away now, softened by smoke, hide, fatigue, and the simple fact that you're not facing it alone. By the time the fire has settled into a steady glow, the cave begins to smell less like stone and more like supper, which is a generous word for the situation but a comforting one. Hunger moves through the group quietly. It is not the sharp, dramatic hunger of an empty afternoon. It is slower, deeper, mixed with cold, effort, worry, and the knowledge that the storm outside may not leave politely by morning. Food bundles are drawn closer to the hearth. They have been carried in skins, bark containers, woven bags, and the careful hands of people who understand that losing food in a blizzard is not a funny little inconvenience. Dried meat comes out first, dark strips stiff from smoke and cold. Someone warms it near the fire until it softens enough to chew without making your jaw feel personally attacked. Fat is unwrapped from a skin packet. A few gathered nuts, cracked earlier with stone, are passed around. There may be dried berries if the season and luck have been kind. Roots, if already dug and saved, are tucked into ash or held near coals to warm through. The smell is powerful because the cave holds it close. Meat, smoke, fat, damp hide, ash, and human breath combine into a heavy, savoury cloud. Your stomach answers with an embarrassing little twist. No one judges. Their stomachs are making similar statements. In this place. Appetite is honest. It sits with you by the fire like another member of the group. One dependable fact about Stone Age food is that diets varied widely by region, season, and available resources. Ice Age groups might eat large game, smaller animals, fish, shellfish, birds, eggs, roots, nuts, seeds, berries, and stored or dried foods when they could manage it. There was no single menu called caveman food, no tidy brand identity, no protein bar named after a mammoth. People ate what knowledge, mobility, skill, landscape, and luck allowed. Tonight, luck tastes like smoked meat. You receive a strip and hold it between cold fingers. It is tough, salty from its own preserved richness rather than any neat shaker of salt, and edged with soot. You chew slowly. The meat warms in your mouth, releasing fat and smoke. It is not tender. It asks for patience. But each swallow sends a small message downward fuel has arrived. Your body listens. Heat begins inside too. Not just at the skin. A little strength returns to your hands. The children get pieces softened by adults first. Elders receive portions that are easier to chew. Someone cracks a bone that was carried for marrow. and a murmur moves around the fire when the rich centre is exposed. Marrow is dense, precious food, soft and fatty. The sort of thing cold bodies understand immediately. It gleams in the firelight. A little is shared, not equally in some mathematical sense, perhaps, but carefully, socially, with attention to need, contribution, age, and kinship. A rather odd detail from prehistoric food history is that some groups likely used animal stomachs, skins, bark, or tightly woven containers for holding and heating liquids, sometimes with hot stones dropped in to warm broth or render fat. It sounds like a cooking show hosted by someone with no pots and enormous confidence. Yet it works. If you cannot place a container directly on flame, you can heat stones in the fire, lift them with sticks, and place them carefully into liquid. The stones hiss, the liquid warms, dinner becomes slightly less tragic. There is no grand feast tonight. The storm argues against extravagance. Everyone knows the food may need to last. The dried stores cannot be emptied just because the first night feels frightening. A blizzard can hold a group in place for days, and hunger has a long memory. So pieces are small, chewing is slow. People make food last with the seriousness of ritual. Archaeologists continue to examine whether some Ice Age cave occupants relied heavily on planned storage during winter, or whether many shelters were used with more flexible, short-term supplies carried from place to place. The evidence shifts by region. Some sites show repeated use and complex food processing. Others look more temporary, in your cave, tonight. The answer is practical rather than tidy. You have enough to make it through the dark, perhaps longer if the storm demands it. But nobody is relaxing into abundance. Abundance is for summer stories. Food smells do more than feed you. They mark the cave as human. Smoke and meat push against the musk of old animals. Warm fat covers the damp mineral scent. The hearth becomes a kitchen, but also a signal. It tells every nose nearby that people are here, that animals have been butchered, that food is present. This is comforting and worrying at the same time, a very Stone Age combination. The group handles scraps with care. Bones are not tossed casually into the dark, unless everyone wants rodents, foxes, or worse, to enjoy a midnight invitation. Grease on fingers is licked clean because calories matter. A child tries to hide an extra morsel under a hide and is gently corrected by someone who has clearly seen this small crime before. It is not cruelty. It is arithmetic. Food must be known, counted by memory, guarded from damp and teeth. You smell something sweet for a moment. A handful of dried berries is warmed near the fire. Pass between a few palms, you receive one, wrinkled and dark, no larger than the end of your thumb. It tastes startling after meat and smoke, a little bright note from a season that feels impossibly far away. You let it soften on your tongue for one breath. Snow and hunger loosen their grip. Around the hearth, eating becomes almost silent. There is chewing, swallowing, the scrape of stone against bone, the soft crack of shells, the wet sound of marrow pulled free. Someone mutters a joke about the meat being so tough it may walk away if warmed too much. A few tired smiles appear. Gentle sarcasm, as you can see, is not a modern invention. People facing danger have probably always teased dinner when dinner deserved it. The firelight makes every piece of food look precious. Fat shines, meat darkens, steam rises from a warmed root and smells earthy, like thawed soil. You hold it between both hands before biting, because warmth in the palms is almost as welcome as food in the mouth. Its texture is fibrous, slightly sweet, smoky from ash. A few grains of grit join the meal, because fine dining has not yet arrived, and apparently neither has dental insurance. Hunger changes the way you listen to the storm before eating. The wind sounded like a threat only. Now it also sounds like distance from the next hunt. The next gathering patch, The next stream, the next carcass, the next chance. Snow covers tracks, ice locks roots in hard ground. Animals shelter too. The blizzard is not just cold air, it is a pause forced onto the food chain, and you're inside that pause, chewing slowly, when the first meal is done. The remaining food is wrapped again, not too far from the fire, where damp might creep in, not too close, where sparks might strike, not against the wall, where rodents travel. A watchful person tucks it beneath a hide and sets a stone nearby. The message is plain enough, tiny pause. Kindly make other plans. Your belly is not full in the luxurious sense. It is reassured. There is a difference, and tonight that difference is enough. Warmth from the food spreads gradually. Your fingers feel less hollow. Your thoughts soften at the edges. Around you, others settle back onto bedding, licking grease from thumbs, wiping blades, setting bones aside for later cracking or tool use. Nothing is wasted if memory and hunger can help it. The cave returns to its softer sounds: fire, wind, breathing, the small rustle of someone hiding a food bundle better. Smoke curls overhead. The taste of meat lingers. The berry sweetness is already fading, but you keep remembering it. Outside, the blizzard covers the world. Inside, the smells of food and fire cling to the stone, telling the dark that for now, the living are still warm, still fed, and still together. After food, clothing becomes the next quiet problem, because winter is never satisfied with one kind of discomfort. You have eaten. Yes. The fire is alive. Yes. The bedding has stopped the stone floor from stealing quite so much of your warmth. Yes. And still. Your feet feel like two small arguments attached to your legs. You draw them closer under the hide and flex your toes inside their wrappings. The movement is stiff. The outer hide of your footwear has frozen in places, especially around the edges where snowmelt met cold air. Inside, dry grass and soft fibres have been packed for insulation, but some of it has shifted under your heel. You can feel a hard seam pressing near one toe. You consider ignoring it, which is always the first and worst plan. Then you reach down, loosen the binding, and adjust the stuffing with fingers that do not appreciate the assignment. Clothing here is not a costume. It is equipment, memory, labour, and a portable shelter. Every stitched seam represents hours of scraping, softening, cutting, piercing, and tying. Every fur wrap carries the work of hands that prepared an animal skin before rot claimed it. Every cord, thong, and bone fastener has a purpose. The whole outfit may smell powerfully of smoke, fat, hide, and weather, but it is keeping you alive, so perhaps we offer it a little respect. A firm point from prehistoric research is that tailored clothing became essential for humans living in cold Ice Age environments. Archaeologists cannot always recover soft garments, since skin, sinew, and plant fibre usually decay. But bone needles, awls, hide scraping tools, and where patterns on stone tools all suggest careful hide working and fitted clothing in many Paleolithic communities. People did not simply drape themselves in a random pelt and hope for the best. Hope is nice. A properly stitched sleeve is better. You pull your outer wrap tighter around your shoulders. It is fur-lined, patched in places where old tears were repaired. The fur traps warmth close to your body. The outer skin sheds some snow when kept oiled and treated, though after hours in a storm, damp has crept in along edges and folds. Near the fire, the wet parts release a sour, heavy smell. Steam rises faintly. Someone turns a pair of leggings inside out and props them on sticks. Close enough to dry, not close enough to char. This requires judgment. Too far away and the clothing stays damp. Too near, and you may wake to discover your winter wardrobe has become smoke-flavoured sadness. The group works through small clothing rituals, Bindings are loosened around swollen feet. Snow is shaken from hems. Ice is picked from fur with fingernails. A child's mitt is pulled off, dried, and turned near the flame. An elder rubs stiffness from their hands before tucking them into a soft fold of hide. Someone uses a bone pin to fasten a cloak more securely at the chest. Someone else checks a seam with the irritated focus of a person who knows that one little tear can become a freezing draught at the least convenient hour. A curious side note from archaeology and biology is that the evolution of clothing may even be traced indirectly through lice. Clothing lice, which live in garments rather than on bare skin, appear to have diverged from head lice sometime in prehistory, suggesting that regular clothing created a new little habitat. Yes, your cozy fur outfit may come with tiny tenants. History is soothing, but not always polite. You rub your feet one at a time, working warmth back into them. The skin prickles, then burns, then slowly begins to feel like it belongs to you again. Cold feet are not just unpleasant, they can ruin sleep, slow movement, and weaken attention. In a world where you may need to rise quickly if the fire flares, if a child cries, or if something growls at the entrance, numb feet are a liability. You tuck fresh dry grass around your toes, then bind the hide again, not too tight. Tight bindings can trap cold by stopping blood from moving well. Loose bindings let snow and air enter. The correct answer is, annoyingly, skill. Experts remain divided over how varied Stone Age clothing styles were across regions, and how much garments signalled identity, age, group membership, or skill beyond simple protection. The evidence is partial. A needle tells us sewing happened, but not whether a sleeve carried a family pattern. A bead suggests decoration, but not the compliments it earned. Still, as you look around the fire, you notice differences. One cloak has a border of carefully cut strips. Another has small shells or teeth tied near the edge. A child wears a patched hood made from a softer skin than yours. Clothing speaks quietly, even when the words are gone. The blizzard reminds everyone why these layers matter. Each time the wind shifts, cold slides through the entrance and crawls along the floor. It finds ankles first, then wrists, then the gap where your wrap does not overlap properly. You close it. The cold is persistent, but it is not cleverer than everyone at once. One person blocks a draft with a bundle of spare hide. Another shifts bedding so no bare foot points toward the entrance. A skin is hung near the cave mouth on a line of cord and wooden pegs, not sealing it fully, but breaking the worst of the wind. It flaps and breathes with the storm, a dark moving shape at the edge of firelight. The sound of clothing fills the cave now, fur brushing fur, thongs being tightened, hide creaking, needles scraping through tough material as someone repairs a small split even at this hour. Because storms do not pause for office hours, the needle is likely bone or antler, smooth from use, precious enough to be kept close. A lost needle in bedding is bad news in two ways. The group loses a tool, and someone eventually finds it with their thigh. Ancient inconvenience, beautifully preserved. Your own cloak has a smoky warmth near the shoulders, but the lower edge is damp. You lift it toward the fire and watch steam ghost upward. The smell deepens. Smoke gets into everything. Hair, skin, bedding, food, fur, memory. Modern people may wrinkle their noses, but smoke has benefits. It helps dry materials, may discourage insects, and can preserve hides or foods in certain conditions. You're slowly becoming a walking smokehouse, which is not glamorous. But the mosquitoes are not here to complain. A young person near you removes a frozen outer foot wrap and grimaces. The inside is wet. Someone passes them dry fibres from a small bundle. Not a large amount, because dry insulation is valuable. Enough. They repack the wrap, bind it, then hold both feet near the fire with a blissful expression that lasts until the watcher tells them to move back before sparks get ideas. Comfort is allowed. Foolishness is moderated. You slide your hands under your armpits and lean into the shared hide. The clothing closest to your body is warmed. The outer layers are still drying. This creates a strange double-feeling heat near the skin. Chill at the edges. Dampness leaving slowly. You're wrapped in a system that must keep changing through the night. Dry this side. Turn that boot. Shake out the grass. Loosen the binding. Tuck the fur. Check the child. Keep the elder's hands covered. Nothing about warmth is automatic. The storm continues beyond the entrance, but inside. Clothing transforms from travel armour into sleeping shelter. Boots become pillows for no one, because they smell terrible. Cloaks become blankets. Hoods are pulled low over ears. Spare skins are shared across bodies. Mitts are tucked under wraps to dry from body heat. Your fur collar brushes your cheek, rough and warm, beneath it. Your breathing slows. The ancient bedtime problem of cold toes is not solved forever. It never is. But for now, your feet have sensation. Your wraps are tightening around warmth instead of ice. And the fire is pulling damp from the garments one slow breath at a time. You curl slightly, guarding your heat. Around you. The cave rustles with fur and fibre, with people making tiny adjustments against a vast winter, and as the blizzard claws at the stone outside, you feel how much of survival depends on these humble layers, stitched by firelight, smoked by use, and wrapped close against the dark. The cave begins to divide the night into smaller duties. No one says this aloud. It simply happens, as naturally as smoke finding the ceiling. Some bodies settle deeper into bedding, others remain half awake, listening through the storm. A child turns and presses their face into a parent's side. An elder coughs once, then again. A dry sound that makes two people glance over. The fire shifts. The watcher feeds it. Sleep does not arrive all at once, it is handed around carefully, like food. You're tired enough that your thoughts soften, but not tired enough to stop noticing. In this place, the vulnerable shape the night. Children, elders, the injured, and the very worn out are not background figures. They determine where warmth goes, who wakes when, who eats first, who must be checked, and how safely the group can rest. A strong hunter with cold feet may complain. A small child with cold hands may not wake in time to complain at all. The difference matters. A secure piece of anthropological understanding is that hunter-gatherer communities often relied on shared childcare and support across generations. Children learned by watching, playing, imitating, and listening, while elders could preserve knowledge of seasons, tools, plants, animal behaviour, and routes across the land. Survival was not only muscle and speed, it was memory, it was attention. It was someone knowing which hollow floods in thaw, which root can be eaten, which wind means the storm will last. Near the fire, a child who should be asleep is staring wide-eyed at the cave mouth. Their hair sticks out from beneath a little hood, their cheeks shine in the flame, every gust makes them blink. Their mother murmurs something too soft for you to catch, then tucks the child's hands under her own wrap. The child whispers a question. The answer comes as a breath, not a lecture. Yes. The wind is loud. No, it cannot bite through stone. Yes, someone is watching. No, you may not poke the fire. A complete education in 4 sleepy sentences. There is a small, almost funny truth about children in ancient shelters. Archaeologists have found tiny handprints, footprints, finger marks, and traces that suggest children were present in caves and sometimes interacted with soft clay surfaces or walls. Not every mark is a solemn ritual by a wise adult with dramatic cheekbones. Some may simply belong to curious children being curious, which is both charming and deeply unsurprising. Give a child damp clay and a wall, and apparently humanity has always known what happens next. The elders are quieter. One lies close to the heat, wrapped in a skin with the fur turned inward. Another sits upright for a while, knees bent, looking into the fire as if reading scenes in the coals. Their face is lined, eyes half closed, but no one treats them as useless. An older person may not run fastest through snow, yet they may remember storms from long before you were born. They may know the sound of a bear outside, the safest way to stack damp wood, the signs of sickness in a child, the old story that keeps fear from spreading in a blizzard. Memory is a tool. Researchers have not reached a final agreement on how much status elderly individuals held in different Paleolithic groups, or how care for the old and injured varied between communities, burials, healed injuries. And long-lived individuals suggest that compassion and support could be part of human life very far back. But each site gives only fragments. In this cave, tonight, care is practical and emotional at once. Someone adjusts an elder's bedding. Someone else passes warm marrow earlier than they might have if food were plentiful. No announcement is made. The act is the announcement. The watch changes slowly. The first watcher leans toward another adult and touches their shoulder. There is no loud command. A few words pass close to the ear. The second watcher sits up, blinking in that pained way of someone pulled from the edge of sleep. They rub their face, reach for the spear, then shift nearer the fire. The first watcher settles down, but not in the warmest place. That would disturb too many bodies. They slide into the nearest gap, accept part of a hide, and are asleep almost before their breathing finds rhythm. You notice how broken sleep is here. Modern sleep often imagines one long block, preferably uninterrupted, ideally with a pillow that understands your neck. In this cave, rest is more like a woven mat. People wake to feed the hearth, soothe a child, turn damp clothing, cough, listen, shift bedding, or check the entrance. They sleep, wake, and sleep again. The night is shared in pieces. Outside, the blizzard works hard to become the only sound in the world. Inside, care produces its own soft music. A hand rubbing warmth into another hand. A whisper. A cough answered by a lifted water skin. Grass bedding pressed down again after a child kicks through it. Someone humming low. Not quite a song. Maybe only a sound to calm a baby who's too tired to cry properly. The tune has no audience beyond the people under stone, which is exactly the point. Your own eyes close, then open when the elder coughs again. It is not a terrible cough, but smoke makes every throat rough. Someone nudges a bit of bedding higher behind their back so they can lie at a better angle. The elder mutters thanks, or maybe complaint. With elders, the two can sound remarkably similar. The helper smiles in the dark and returns to their place. Children carry danger of another kind. They move without remembering consequences. One small sleeper rolls toward the hearth. An adult catches them by the back of their wrap and drags them gently but firmly into the warmer middle. The child does not wake. Impressive, also rude. A stone is moved to block the edge of the bedding. The firekeeper watches sparks with renewed suspicion. Flames are useful, yes, but they are not invited to cuddle. You feel the group's vigilance even when most eyes are shut. It is a web. The watcher listens to the entrance. Parents listen to children. Elders listen to the fire and the storm, perhaps because they have listened longer than anyone. Even sleepers respond to tiny changes. A gust pushes smoke low, and several people stir. A child whimpers, and 3 hands move before thought. This is how a group sleeps without surrendering completely. The cave holds all ages together in one chamber, the youngest, who know almost nothing, the oldest, who remember almost everything, and the tired middle, who carry wood, meat, tools, and everyone's expectations. You lie among them, aware that your warmth is partly your own and partly borrowed. Your safety is partly your own and partly entrusted. There is no separate bedtime for the children, no quiet room for elders. No private watch schedule written on a wall. There's only the living arrangement of need. The second watcher adds fuel and leans close to coax the flame. For a moment the fire brightens, light moves across sleeping faces, the child now finally slack-mouthed with rest. The elder with one hand curled near the chest, the young adult with damp boots drying nearby. The first watcher fallen heavily into sleep. The storm continues to roar, but inside the cave. The night has found a fragile order. You let your breathing match the bodies beside you. Inhale with the warm scent of hide. Exhale into smoke. A child's foot presses again against your calf. This time you do not move it. The small weight is proof of life, and proof that someone trusts the dark enough to sleep. The watcher stays upright, listening. The fire stays fed. Around them, the cave drifts through its restless, caring night. One cough, one whisper, one shared breath at a time. Within arm's reach of your bedding lies a small scatter of objects that quietly explains the life around you. Not treasure in the shiny museum sense, though some of it would make a curator breathe very carefully into a paper bag. These are the things people need before sleep, during sleep, and immediately after waking: blades, scrapers, bone points, cords, baskets, needles, fire sticks, and a few stones chosen because a good stone is not just any stone. A good stone has opinions and a useful edge. You lie close enough to see them in firelight. A flint blade rests on a folded skin, its edge catching a thin orange gleam. Nearby, a scraper sits beside a hide that still needs softening. A bone needle is tucked into a strip of leather, so it will not vanish into the bedding and introduce itself later to someone's thigh. A few wooden shafts lean against the wall, their tips wrapped or fitted with stone or bone. Food bundles are farther back, protected from sparks and greedy little paws. Everything has a place, though the place may look to modernize like a carefully managed mess. The cave is not only a bedroom, it is a workshop that has become sleepy. Tools do not disappear at night because tasks do not disappear. A torn seam must be repaired before morning. A point loosened by cold needs checking. A dull edge may be refreshed. Wet cord must be dried. A basket of fibres must be kept from the damp wall. In this world, bedtime is rarely the end of work. It is the point where work becomes quieter. One established fact from archaeology is that Paleolithic people made and used complex toolkits from stone, bone, antler, wood, hide, and plant fibre. Stone tools survive best, which is why they often dominate museum displays. But the missing materials mattered just as much. A blade could cut hide. A scraper could clean fat from skin. A bone point could pierce. Cord could bind. A basket could carry. The past was not just stone. It was a whole world of perishable skill, most of it lost to time. A young adult sits close to the fire, holding a scraper and a strip of hide. Their movements are slow, almost hypnotic. Draw the edge across the surface, pause, turn the hide, draw again. The sound is soft and dry, like a whisper being combed. They are not doing this because everyone loves late-night chores. They're working because stiff hide cracks, wet hide chills, and torn clothing can become serious trouble when the storm finally releases you back into the white world. The tools near your head are comforting and uncomfortable at once. Comforting because they mean ability. Cutting, fixing, defending, cooking, sewing, carrying, shaping. Uncomfortable because sleeping beside sharp objects requires trust and spatial awareness. Two things that become less impressive after deep exhaustion. Someone nudges a blade farther from a child's hand. Someone else places a spear where the watcher can grab it quickly, but not where a sleeper will roll onto it. Practicality, as ever, is doing a delicate little dance with chaos. A strange but fascinating detail is that some Stone Age tools show signs of having been repaired, reused, reshaped, and carried across distances rather than discarded at the first inconvenience. A broken point might become a smaller point. A dull flake might become a scraper. A core of good stone might travel because the material was valuable. Prehistoric people. Unlike a certain modern habit of throwing away anything mildly annoying, often understood repair as ordinary life. Your nightstand, such as it is, includes recycling with extremely sharp edges. Researchers continue to debate how tool placement inside caves can reveal activity zones, sleeping areas, status, or gendered work, because the same object can move, break, be swept aside, or be left by accident. A cluster of scrapers may show hideworking, or perhaps a tidy storage spot, or perhaps the place where someone simply stopped when the storm grew worse. Archaeology reads patterns, but the lives behind them were busy and mobile. Tonight, you see the pattern forming in the real-time tools follow hands, tasks, warmth, light, and need. The fire gives enough light for close work, not enough for carelessness. The person repairing the hide leans forward until their face glows and their hair smells singed at the ends. They pull back quickly, muttering. Someone laughs under their breath. Fire is helpful, but it has no respect for craftsmanship. A bone awl passes from one hand to another. Sinew thread is dampened, pulled taut, and work through small holes. The motion is familiar, steady, calming, in another world. It could almost be knitting by the television. Except the television is a blizzard, and the knitting may prevent frostbite. You notice a basket near the wall, woven from flexible branches or plant fibres, its rim darkened by smoke and handling. It holds fragments, bits of cord, a small pouch, cracked nuts, spare flakes wrapped carefully. A piece of red ochre may be saved for marking, maybe for hide work, maybe for something more meaningful. The basket looks humble. It is not. Containers change everything. They let hands carry more than hands can hold. They make storage possible. They keep small useful things from vanishing into dirt and bedding and the private kingdom of rodents. A child, not asleep after all, reaches toward the basket. An adult catches the wrist gently. No. The child frowns. The adult pulls out a harmless smooth pebble and gives it over. The child accepts this poor bargain with suspicion, then rolls the pebble between small fingers. It clicks softly against their nail. Perhaps tomorrow, if the storm eases, they will practice with flakes, learn which edges cut and which edges bruise, learn how adults make the world usable by changing its materials. Tonight, they get the pebble. Childhood has always had disappointments. Near the entrance, the watcher checks a spear point. They run a thumb near. Not on, the edge. They test the binding. The shaft is wood, carefully shaped, smoothed by use. A spear is not just a weapon for dramatic silhouettes. It is time stored in an object the search for straight wood. The shaping, the point making, the binding, the testing, the carrying. If something approaches through snow, that time may matter in one sharp second. You stretch one arm carefully and touch the handle of a small scraper that belongs to your sleeping place. It is cool, familiar, and slightly rough where your fingers grip it. You know its balance. You know the duller side and the biting side. In the dark, familiarity matters. You do not want to fumble through unknown objects while half awake. Your personal tool rests where your hand remembers it, like a Stone Age nightstand item, though instead of a glass of water and a book, you have a cutting edge and the vague possibility of wolf. Around the hearth, the last task slow. The hide worker sets down the scraper, the needle is tucked away, the watcher returns the spear across their knees. Tools gather into quiet readiness. They are not asleep, but they rest with you. Their edges shine and fade as flames move. Their shadows lie long over the stone. The cave now contains the whole small economy of survival bedding under bodies. Food wrapped near warmth. Fire at the centre. Tools arranged between sleep and danger. You feel how close work and rest remain. The same hands that cut meat now cover children. The same blade that shaped a point may trim bedding in the morning. The same basket that held nuts may carry embers or bones or herbs when the cave is left behind. Your eyelids lower while the tools remain near. Patient and silent, outside, the storm erases tracks, inside, edges, handles, cords, and needles wait for morning. The cave may be dark, cold, and crowded, but it's not helpless. It's full of skill lying within reach, and that knowledge settles beside you like another layer of hide. The cave has begun to feel almost claimed by the group, which is exactly the moment when the night gently reminds you that ownership is a very optimistic idea. The fire burns, the bedding holds, tools rest within reach, food is wrapped and guarded, human breath warms the dark, and still. Beyond the cave mouth, beyond the moving veil of snow, other lives are waiting out the same storm. You listen for them without meaning to. A gust roars across the entrance, then falls away. In the brief hollow after it, you hear a faint sound outside. Not wind, not snow, a thin, sharp bark perhaps, or the crack of a branch under weight. The watcher goes still. The spear in their hands lifts by a finger's width, around the hearth. Several sleepers do not wake fully, but their bodies know the change. Shoulders tense. A child turns closer into the warm middle. Nothing enters. The storm resumes its noise, yet the cave no longer feels like a sealed room. It feels like one pocket in a wider winter, and every creature with fur, hunger, and common sense is searching for its own pocket too. A well-established archaeological reality is that prehistoric humans often shared landscapes with powerful predators and scavengers. In Ice Age Eurasia, cave bears, wolves, hyenas in some regions, lions, leopards, and other carnivores used caves or rock shelters at different times, bones, claw marks, dens. And gnawed remains show that a cave could shift between animal refuge and human camp across seasons or years. Tonight, you may be inside a place that once held bears, foxes, owls, rodents, insects, and people, though thankfully not all at once. That would be poor planning. The cave mouth draws your attention again. Snow sweeps past it in pale curtains. The hanging hide near the entrance flaps once, then settles behind it. The dark outside has a thick quality, as if it is packed with hidden bodies. You imagine wolves moving below the ridge, their paws quiet in new snow, noses lifting towards smoke. You imagine foxes weaving between rocks. You imagine a bear sleeping somewhere deeper in winter, heavy and dreaming, preferably far away and uninterested in your arrangements. The group has chosen an entrance chamber partly because it can be watched. A deep cave with winding passages may offer protection from wind, but it can also offer many places for surprises to think about becoming exciting. Here, the main opening is visible. Firelight reaches it unevenly. Smoke flows outward. The watchers can hear changes when the blizzard pauses. Nothing about this is perfect. But survival rarely is. It is a game of better choices, not perfect ones. A peculiar little fact, since bedtime apparently cannot resist strange housekeeping, is that cave bear dens sometimes preserved smooth hollows in cave sediment where the bears repeatedly slept. Imagine finding the ancient mattress dent of an enormous hibernating animal. It is cozy in a terrifying way. Such traces remind us that caves were not empty theatres waiting for humans to arrive. They had tenants, routines, smells, and sleeping arrangements long before your group spread grass near the hearth. The smell of animals is not just imagined. The cave has older scents trapped in damp corners. Musk clings low near the wall. Rodent droppings hide in cracks. A feather lies near a ledge where some bird may have nested in a calmer season. The air is human now, thick with smoke and warm hide, but beneath it other histories remain. You breathe them in lightly, as though sniffing too hard might summon them. Specialists continue to discuss whether humans actively displaced large predators from caves, avoided recently occupied dens, or moved into shelters only when animals had left for seasonal reasons. The answer likely varied, which is the most historian answer possible and therefore deeply satisfying. In tonight's cave, the group has checked tracks, thrown stones, listened, smelled, and entered with caution. They are not fearless. Fearless people do not always become ancestors. Careful people have better odds. Near the food bundle, a faint rustle sounds. Everyone ignores it for half a heartbeat. Then one adult reaches over and slaps the ground near the wall. A tiny shape darts away, too quick to identify. Mouse, vole, something small and offended. The child with the pebble sits up, delighted. The adults are less delighted. Small animals are not dramatic predators, but they are expert thieves. They chew through bindings, nibble stored food, foul bedding, and vanish before anyone can properly insult them. The food is moved again. A stone is placed more firmly on the edge of the hide wrap. Someone mutters a remark about little winter ghosts with teeth. You smile into your collar, even in a blizzard, perhaps especially in a blizzard. Life is never only grand danger. It is also the tiny enemy trying to steal your nut cash. The fire is fed brighter for a while. Light reaches farther toward the entrance. The watcher lifts the hanging hide slightly with a stick and peers out. Cold pours in instantly. Snow skirls across the floor. The watcher lowers the hide and shakes their head. Nothing seen. Which does not mean nothing there. It means nothing foolish enough to step into firelight at this moment. Outside, wolves may travel even in harsh weather, though deep snow makes movement costly. Foxes might come closer to human camps for scraps. Owls may wait out the worst gusts in trees or rock ledges. Bears, depending on region and species, may be sleeping in winter dens. Rodents, naturally, are conducting business as usual, because apparently the tiny world never closes. You realize the cave is not a home in the modern, locked door sense. It is negotiated territory. The fire says human. The smoke says human. The tools say human. The smell of food says opportunity. The storm says everybody find shelter now. Please, or suffer the consequences. These messages overlap in the dark. You and the animals share the same winter. Even if no one has agreed on the seating plan, a low howl rises somewhere beyond the storm. It may be far away. It may be closer than you want. Wind catches it, thins it, and pulls it apart. Several people open their eyes. The watcher does not move, but their face hardens. The child in the middle whispers, "Wolf." Someone answers softly, "Far." Perhaps it is. Perhaps the answer is more comfort than certainty. That is allowed. Not every true thing has to be sharpened before bedtime. The howl fades. The fire continues. The cave settles, but differently now. The group shifts closer without discussion. A spear is placed nearer the entrance. Scraps are tucked away. The small rustling creature does not return, at least not where anyone hears it. You lie still, feeling the warmth of bodies and hides, and beyond that warmth, the presence of other hungry lives circling the same white night. There is no hatred in it. Not really. The wolf wants food, the fox wants shelter, the mouse wants crumbs, the bear. One hopes, wants to remain asleep and pursue personal growth elsewhere. You want rest. All of you are bound by winter's pressure. The cave is simply where these needs come close enough to listen to one another. Your eyes close again, in the firelit red behind your lids. Shapes move paws at the entrance, wings in the dark roof, small feet in the wall crack, human hands tightening a hide over food. The storm rages on. The animals remain mostly outside. The people remain inside. For this hour, the agreement holds. The fire has been burning long enough now that the cave walls no longer feel empty. They seem to move with the flame. Ridges swell and shrink, cracks become lines, shadows stretch into animals, then fold back into stone. Smoke veils the ceiling in soft grey layers, and every ember pulse sends new shapes wandering across the dark. You lie beneath your shared hide, half awake, and the cave begins to look less like shelter and more like a place that is also watching. Above the hearth, a wall slopes inward, in full daylight. If daylight can even be imagined in this storm, it might show only stains, mineral streaks, soot, and uneven rock. In firelight, it becomes crowded. A bump turns into a shoulder. A hollow becomes an eye. A long crack suggests the spine of some animal stepping through stone. Your tired mind completes what the flame begins. This is not foolishness. It is what human minds do. They search for pattern. They find meaning. Sometimes they find too much meaning, which is how one ends up glaring bravely at a suspicious rock for 20 minutes. In many Paleolithic caves, people made images of animals, handmarks, signs, and abstract forms on walls, sometimes deep beyond ordinary living areas. This is a well-known archaeological truth, even if its meanings remain difficult to pin down. Horses, bison, mammoths, deer, lions, rhinos, hands, dots, lines, and strange symbols appear in different places across Ice Age Europe and beyond. Not every cave had paintings, not every shelter was a gallery, but where images exist, they remind us that Stone Age people did more than endure the world. They imagined with it. Your cave may have marks, or only shadows that pretend to be marks. Near the side wall, someone has rubbed ochre across a flat stone, leaving a faint red smear. It could be practical, used in hide preparation or body marking. It could be decorative. It could be part of a story, a memory, a small act before sleep. The red is dim in the firelight, but your eyes keep returning to it. In this greystone world, colour feels alive. A small charm lies near the elder's hand, perhaps a pierced tooth, a shell carried from far away, or a carved bit of bone smoothed by touch. A cord loops through it. The elder turns it between finger and thumb while looking toward the wall, not quite asleep. You do not ask what it means. Meanings are often held privately, especially when the night is long and the wind sounds hungry. The charm clicks softly against a ring of bone. The sound is tiny, yet in the cave it feels deliberate. One unusual detail worth tucking under the blanket is that prehistoric artists sometimes used the natural curves of cave walls to shape images, letting bulges become animal flanks and cracks become outlines. The wall was not always just a flat surface waiting for decoration. It could participate. Imagine the cave saying, "Here is a bison shoulder. Do try to keep up." It is a strange partnership between geology, firelight, pigment, and the mind. The fire throws a shadow of the watcher onto the wall. For a moment, their spear becomes impossibly long, their head enormous, their fur hood rising like ears. A child sees it and makes a small sound. The watcher turns, and the monster collapses back into a tired adult with cold knees. Someone whispers a joke. Quiet laughter passes through the bedding. Fear loosens. The wall keeps flickering. Many specialists still question whether painted caves were mainly ritual spaces, teaching places, memory chambers, hunting magic, social gathering sites, or something that does not fit our modern categories at all. Perhaps the answer shifts from cave to cave, wall to wall, even image to image. Tonight, you do not need one neat explanation. You can feel how an image in firelight might gather many uses at once. It can teach a child the shape of an animal. It can honour a hunt. It can summon courage. It can mark belonging. It can be beautiful because people, even cold and hungry people, still make beauty. The cave's darkness deepens beyond the hearth. If there are images farther inside, They remain hidden. No one goes looking now. The storm outside is reason enough to stay close to the fire, yet your imagination travels into those black passages, where breath would echo differently, where torchlight would make walls appear one step at a time. A painted animal seen there might feel less like an object and more like an arrival. You think of the animals outside, wolves and foxes moving through snow, and then of animals on walls, held in mineral red and black, moving through human memory. The cave contains both danger and dream. The elder begins to speak, very softly, not a performance, not an opening speech, just a low thread of words offered to the dark. You understand some of it, perhaps all of it, though parts are old and rhythmic. It is about a winter before this one, a hunt when snow came early, a path lost, then found by watching birds, a person who followed a red deer beyond a ridge and returned with news of shelter. The story does not hurry, it moves like smoke along the ceiling. The children listen because they are children and not yet asleep, despite their earlier claims. The adults listen because stories are not only entertainment, they are maps with feelings in them. They carry warnings, routes, jokes, names, and the memory of what worked before. They make fear share space with meaning. A blizzard can make the world feel blank. A story writes it back into shape. You watch the shadows while the elder speaks. The flicker of flame makes the red smear on the wall appear to pulse. The watcher's silhouette bows and rises as they tend the fire. The hanging hide at the entrance moves with the wind, a dark lung breathing against the snow. The cave, the storm, the story, the marks, the charm. The animal shapes in shadow all blend until sleep and sacred imagination become neighbours. There is no need to decide whether every act is ritual or every mark is practical. Human life is rarely so neatly sorted. The same red pigment might decorate skin, treat hide, mark a wall, or colour a tale told to a child. The same fire that cooks meat also awakens spirits in stone. The same cave that protects bodies also fills minds with forms that last beyond a single storm. Your eyes grow heavy. The elder's voice dips lower. The words become less distinct, but their rhythm remains. You feel the charm click once more near their hand. You smell smoke and warm fur. You hear wind outside, still fierce, but now woven into the story instead of standing apart from it. A shadow animal crosses the wall and disappears when the flame bends. Perhaps tomorrow, if the storm allows. Someone will mark the wall again. Perhaps not. Perhaps this night will leave only soot, pressed bedding, scattered ash, and a memory in the people who survive it. But for now, lying in the amber pulse of the hearth, you understand why stone, shadow, image, and dream could belong together. The cave is not only where you sleep while the blizzard rages, it is where the dark becomes visible, where fear takes shape, and where the human mind gently, stubbornly, paints meaning onto the night. The first warning is not dramatic. It is not a sudden scream, not a heroic leap, not a collapsing ceiling or glowing eyes at the entrance. It is a sting in your eyes. You blink once, then again. The fire is lower now, and one of the damp branches placed near the hearth has begun to smoke more heavily than it burns. A grey ribbon gathers under the ceiling, spreads along the rock, then sinks in slow layers where the cave roof dips. You turn your face into the hide, but smoke has a talent for finding any person who thought they were safe. It curls into your nose, scratches your throat, and makes your eyes water until the fire blurs into a trembling orange pool. Someone coughs, then someone else. The elder who coughed earlier lifts a hand to their mouth. A child whimpers without waking fully. The watcher leans forward and uses a stick to shift the smoky branch toward the hotter coals, trying to make it flame cleanly. Sparks rise, smoke thickens for a breath, then thins. Not enough. The cave is reminding everyone that the hearth is comfort only when the air agrees. A dependable finding from prehistoric cave studies is that smoke management mattered wherever people used fire indoors or under rock. Soot stains, hearth placement, and ventilation patterns show that ancient groups often built fires where drafts could carry smoke away, especially near entrances or under higher chambers. They didn't need modern monitors to know bad air. Burning eyes, coughing, headaches, and nausea are persuasive teachers. You push yourself onto one elbow, the shared hide slides from your shoulder, and cold immediately touches the exposed skin. Wonderful. Choose your discomfort. Dear listener, smoke above, cold beside, stone below. History offers options, all of them character building. The watcher pokes the fire again, a drier stick is added, thin and resinous. It catches quickly with a bright crackle, and flame climbs around the smoky branch. The grey layer lifts slightly as heat strengthens the upward pull. Air moves from behind you toward the entrance, slow but steady. The hanging hide at the cave mouth shifts in the draft. It blocks snow. Yes, but it also changes how air leaves. Someone near the entrance rises, grumbling, and loosens one side of it. Cold gusts in at once, sharp enough to make sleepers curl tighter, but the smoke begins to draw outward more cleanly. The cave has become a lesson in trade-offs. Hang the hide too tightly, and warmth stays in, but smoke may stay too. Open it too much, and air clears, but the blizzard sends cold fingers across the floor. Burn damp wood, and the fire smoulders. Burn only the best dry wood. And tomorrow may become a colder problem. Every decision has a little tooth in it. One curious historical detail is that some researchers have recreated ancient hearth conditions in caves to study smoke movement, light levels, and fuel use. Experimental archaeology can involve modern people making controlled fires in cave-like spaces, then measuring visibility and air quality. Imagine volunteering to sit in smoke so future scholars can say, yes, that was uncomfortable. Noble work, but perhaps not the most glamorous dinner party story. Your own throat feels rough. You swallow and taste ash. Around you, people adjust positions, children are nudged lower, closer to clearer air near the ground. Though even that is not simple because smoke can move strangely depending on heat and cave shape. The elder is shifted toward a place where the draft passes better. Someone fans gently with a flat piece of bark, not to spread sparks, but to guide smoke upward and away. The movements are practiced. Irritated. Yes, but practiced. Academic discussion remains lively over how much smoke exposure affected prehistoric health, especially for people who spent long hours near hearths in enclosed shelters. Some evidence from ancient remains suggests respiratory stress in certain populations, though causes can be complex in the cave tonight. Complexity feels less important than the immediate fact that your eyes are streaming and your nose has decided to participate in the weather. The smell of the smoke changes as the branch finally burns hotter. Damp sourness gives way to the sharper scent of clean flame. You breathe through your mouth for a moment, then regret it when your tongue feels coated. The firekeeper scrapes ash away from one side of the hearth, making a hotter centre and a cooler edge for embers. Half-burned log is turned. Another wet piece is moved farther away to dry more slowly before anyone dares feed it to the flames. A small child wakes properly now, coughing and angry. The sound cuts through the cave, thin but fierce. Their parent pulls them upright, rubbing their back in slow circles. The child's face shines with tears, smoke, and confusion. They are offered a sip from a skin, then tucked against an adult chest until their breathing settles. Nobody scolds the child. Smoke is enough of a villain. No need to add parenting commentary. You notice how the firelight has changed. With smoke between you and the flame, everything is softer, blurred, almost dreamlike. The walls seem farther away. Faces appear and vanish behind grey folds. The painted or stained patch from earlier looks dimmer now, as though the cave is closing its eyes. It might be beautiful if it didn't make breathing such a project. The watcher peers toward the entrance. The opening is partly cleared, and snow has blown across the threshold in a pale fan. Cold air pours in low, while warmer smoky air slips out high. This is better. But it makes the sleepers nearest the front mutter and drag their hides tighter. One person uses a spare skin as a low barrier against the floor draft, leaving the upper gap more open for smoke. It is a small engineering solution, built from discomfort, observation, and a deep unwillingness to freeze or choke, reasonable. The fire settles into a better burn. Flames shorten, embers glow brighter. Smoke thins into a higher stream that follows the ceiling toward the cave mouth. Your eyes still sting, but less. The coughs space out. The elder's breathing eases. The child, insulted by the entire event, falls asleep again with impressive speed. Children are resilient, or perhaps simply exhausted. You lie down once more, but sleep is slower to return. Smoke has made everyone aware of the cave's limits. Stone protects you from snow, but it also traps what you bring inside. Fire saves you from cold, but it can turn on the lungs that praise it. The hanging hide keeps wind away, but air must still pass. Shelter is not a fixed blessing. It is a balance held moment by moment. The firekeeper remains alert now. More alert than before, they choose each piece of fuel carefully. Tapping damp ends, smelling wood, feeling weight. The pile of dry sticks has shrunk. No one says this loudly. No one wants the children to hear worry layered on top of storm and smoke. But adults notice. The blizzard may continue. The hearth must last. The air must remain breathable. The group must use fuel not as if they fear tomorrow, but as if they respect it. You tuck your face into the edge of your fur and find a small pocket of cleaner air. It smells of animal hide, your own breath, and faint old smoke, which now seems almost pleasant compared with the thicker cloud. Your eyes close. The cave walls fade. Outside, the storm presses on. Inside, the hearth glows lower, watched with new seriousness. Comfort has become cautious again. The little sun on the floor is still your friend. Still warmth, still light, still guardian against the night. But now you understand its temper. It needs air, dry fuel, space, and attention. Neglect it, and cold comes. Mismanage it, and smoke takes the room. So the fire is treated not as a possession, but as a demanding companion, and while you drift back toward broken sleep. The smoke slides out through the loosened entrance, carrying with it the sharp reminder that even safety must breathe. By now, the storm has stopped feeling like an event and has become a world. At first, you expected it to pass like bad temper. A few hours of screaming wind, a night of snow, perhaps a difficult morning, and then the sky would remember its manners. But the cave mouth still shows only white motion and black gaps. The wind still presses at the entrance. The snow still hisses over stone. Outside has not returned. Outside has become an idea. No sunlight reaches you in any clear way. There is only a dim paling at the entrance when the hidden day arrives, then a slow sinking back into dark. The blizzard scrubs away dawn and evening until time feels rubbed smooth. Your body tries to count by hunger, by the fire's rhythm, by the changing watchers, by the stiffness in your hips, but the storm keeps folding 1 hour into the next. You begin to understand how a cave can become the whole known world. At least for a while. There is a reliable truth from human prehistory that matters here. Ice Age people were skilled seasonal planners, but they still lived with uncertainty. Weather could delay movement, conceal tracks, freeze water sources, bury plants, scatter animals, and interrupt planned journeys. Knowledge improved survival, yet it did not make the sky obedient. when a severe storm settled in. Waiting could be the wisest action, even if waiting was uncomfortable, boring, and full of tiny negotiations over food, fuel, and patience. The cave develops routines. Someone feeds the fire, someone checks the entrance, someone scrapes snow away where it has blown under the hanging hide, someone turns damp clothing, someone counts food bundles by touch and memory, someone quiets a child who asks whether morning has come again and receives the very unsatisfying answer that yes, perhaps, but no, not the kind that helps. You wake, sleep, wake again. Each waking feels similar. Smoke smell, fur weight, body's clothes, fire glow, wind, always wind. Your mouth is dry. Your air smells so thoroughly of smoke that it may never forgive you. Your legs are cramped from curling for warmth. When you stretch, your foot nudges someone's calf, and they grumble without opening their eyes. You whisper an apology. They grunt in a way that suggests forgiveness is pending review. A curious little observation from traditional cold weather living is that people often create indoor routines that conserve energy during long storms. Repairing gear, telling stories, tending children, sorting food, drying clothes, and sleeping in turns are not signs of idleness. They are how a trapped group turns waiting into survival, in modern terms. It is the original indoor day, sadly. No one has invented puzzles with missing pieces yet, though someone is absolutely capable of losing a bone needle and making everyone search the bedding. The cave floor becomes marked by repeated motion. A path from bedding to hearth, a path from hearth to entrance, a path to the darker side where stored materials rest. Ash gathers in small ridges. Snowmelt darkens one patch near the opening. Grass bedding flattens under bodies and must be lifted, shaken, and thickened where it is compressed. The hearthstones warm, cool, and warm again. The cave is being lived into. Researchers continue to puzzle over how long some prehistoric groups stayed in particular caves during harsh weather, and how archaeologists can distinguish a brief storm refuge from repeated seasonal occupation. A few hearths, a scatter of tools, bones, bedding traces, or soot layers may speak of human presence, but they do not always reveal whether people stayed one night, several days, or returned many times over generations. Tonight, you feel how quickly a short stay can become dense with evidence. One blizzard can leave ash, scraps, prints, broken tools, and memory pressed into the ground. The absence of sun changes mood. People speak more softly for a while, then more sharply when cramped discomfort grows. Someone complains that another person's boot is too close to the fire and smells like a wet animal having a personal crisis. Someone else replies that all boots smell like that now, including yours. Thank you. The argument fades before it becomes serious. Nobody has energy to waste on pride when fuel is low and children are listening. Hunger becomes part of timekeeping. A small meal marks what might be midday, another marks what might be evening. Portions are careful. Dried meat is sliced thinner. Fat is shared with intent. Warmed roots are counted. The child who tried to hide food earlier watches the bundles with deep professional interest. An adult notices and smiles tiredly. Trust, yes. Also, supervision. The fire's rhythm becomes the cave's clock. Flames bright after fresh fuel. Red coals during rest. Smoke when damp wood is tested. Ash when embers are banked. The watchers measure time by how long a branch burns, how often a child wakes, how many times the entrance needs clearing, without sun. The fire is not only heat and light, it is sequence. It tells the group that actions continue, that the night has not swallowed order completely. You crawl once toward the entrance to look out when the watcher lifts the hide. Cold strikes your face so hard that your eyes water instantly. Beyond the opening, the world is almost featureless. Snow sweeps sideways. The slope below the cave is gone under drifts. Rocks have become humps. Any tracks from your arrival are buried. The trees, if they are still trees, appear as grey smudges bending under white weight. You retreat quickly, because curiosity is lovely but frostbite is less so. Inside again. The cave feels warmer than before, though it is not truly warm. It is simply less cruel than outside. Your fingers ache as they thaw. Someone hands you a strip of warmed hide to wrap around them. You accept with a nod, in prolonged storm life. Kindness is often quiet and temporary, a warm strip, a shifted place, a sip of water, a better angle near the fire. Water itself becomes a task. Snow can be melted, but clean snow must be brought in or gathered from near the entrance before too much ash, dirt, or animal trace joins it. Melting snow takes fuel, and fuel is precious. The result is surprisingly little water from a large amount of snow, which feels like a poor bargain offered by winter. Still, warm water or broth can soothe throats scratched by smoke. It can soften food. It can make a child stop crying for reasons everyone supports. The deeper hours blur. Someone repairs a cord. Someone tells the same story again, shorter this time. Someone sleeps sitting up and denies it when their head jerks forward. The elder watches the entrance with narrowed eyes, perhaps reading the wind from sound alone. The group has become patient, but not peacefully patient. More like trapped animal patient. Quiet because noise costs energy. Still because movement exposes cold places. Calm because panic has no useful handle. No fresh world arrives. No bright sunbeam enters with cheerful music. There is only the ongoing storm, the cave, and the small daily acts repeated in smoke dimness. You begin to feel how humans survive not by being constantly dramatic, but by doing necessary things again and again. Tuck the hide, feed the fire, dry the boot, share the food, hold the child, listen, wait. And while the blizzard continues beyond stone, the cave becomes a dim world of patience. A place where hours are counted in embers, meals, coughs, and careful hands. You lie back beneath the hide, no longer asking whether it is night or day, for now. There is only inside and outside, warmth and white wind, and the quiet courage of staying where survival still has a chance. Warmth, after several days inside stone, becomes less like a comfort and more like a craft. You stop thinking of it as one thing. It is not simply fire. It is not simply fur. It is not simply the press of another person sleeping beside you, though that certainly helps, even if their elbow has become a recurring character in your suffering. Warmth is a system of small decisions, made again and again, with no applause. The cave is cold at its edges. It is cold in the damp wall, cold in the stone floor, cold in the air that slides under the hanging hide at the entrance. It waits under bedding that has compressed too much. It hides in wet boot seams. It gathers in sleeves, around wrists, behind knees, between shoulder blades when your cloak slips. The fire fights it, but the fire cannot be everywhere. So the group becomes clever in quiet ways. You begin with the bedding. Grass that has flattened is lifted and loosened. Moss is shaken, turned, and moved from under heavier adults toward children who need more padding. Branches beneath the sleeping place are adjusted so air remains trapped under the hides. This trapped air is important. It is invisible, unimpressive, and absolutely doing more work than several people who talk a lot around fires. Without it, the ground pulls heat from you all night. A sound principle known from archaeology and survival studies is that insulation from the ground is crucial in cold environments. Prehistoric bedding made of grasses, reeds, hides, moss, and branches would have helped create a barrier between the body and frozen or damp surfaces. Even a thick fur wrap loses much of its value if your weight crushes it directly against cold stone. The lesson is simple enough for any age. Do not let the earth drink your warmth if you can help it. You shift your sleeping place slightly away from a damp patch that has been creeping outward since snow began melting near the entrance. The cave floor does not flood, thankfully, but moisture travels in sly dark stains. Someone places a flat stone and a strip of bark as a barrier. Someone else uses old ash near the hearth to dry a small wet area, then sweeps it back before bedding goes down. It is not elegant, it works well enough, which in this cave is practically poetry. There is a funny little detail in the way people conserve heat. Almost nothing heroic happens. Nobody stands bare-chested at the entrance challenging winter to a duel. Nobody makes a grand speech about endurance while their toes turn blue. Instead, people tuck hides into gaps. They sit on their hands. They rotate damp socks. Although socks as you know them are not here. So let us say foot wrappings with ambition. They share body heat. They move slowly. They avoid sweating. Because sweat can chill later. The bravest thing anyone does is prevent unnecessary dampness, which is not very cinematic but extremely wise. Across the fire, a young hunter starts to pace to warm their legs. The elder snaps a soft warning. Not outside, not too much. Movement makes heat. Yes, but it also burns energy and may loosen clothing. In a sealed storm, every calorie matters. You're not exercising for personal improvement. You're rationing yourself. If movement is needed, it is purposeful. Gather snow. Shift wood. Repair bedding. Check the entrance. Turn clothing. Fetch a tool. Random energetic stomping is for people who have never been trapped for days with limited food. Also for toddlers, but they are supervised. The discussion among experts is still open regarding how Ice Age groups balanced activity and rest during periods of forced shelter, especially when food stores were limited and weather prevented hunting. Ethnographic comparisons suggest that conserving energy could be as important as producing heat, but direct evidence is hard to recover from ash and stone. Tonight, your body understands the balance immediately. Move enough to keep circulation. Rest enough to save strength. Do not become damp. Do not become stiff. Do not become the person who wastes fuel because they wanted to look impressive. The fire is managed with the same careful restraint. Bigger flames feel better at first. They throw heat across faces and hands, brightening moods. But big flames eat wood quickly and send more smoke upward. A steady bed of coals may serve better, warm and lasting, with small pieces added when needed. The firekeeper banks embers under ash during quieter stretches, coaxing heat from them without letting them die. Stones around the hearth hold warmth and release it slowly. You lean near one after it has been warmed, not touching it directly, just feeling the stored heat against your palms. A child complains that the cave is cold. An adult answers, yes, a perfect reply. Really, accurate, economical. The child complains again, with more feeling. The adult pulls them closer under a shared hide and tucks fur around their back. The child goes quiet. The problem is not solved in theory, but the body is persuaded for now. Your own clothing has become part of the heat plan. The inner layer must stay as dry as possible. The outer hide can take more smoke and damp, but it must be turned. Your hood is pulled low, because heat leaves easily from exposed skin. Your hands rest under your arms. Your feet are wrapped with fresh, dry grass, then placed near another person's legs, with the silent agreement that everyone is now furniture. This is social warmth, slightly awkward, deeply effective. The smell of the cave is thicker after so much heat making. Smoke settles into every fibre. Damp hide, steam. Warm bodies release salt and sourness. Grass bedding smells crushed and earthy. Fat near the fire softens and scents the air. None of this is clean by modern standards, but it is alive. The cave smells like people refusing to freeze. You notice how the group creates zones. Closest to the hearth, clothing dries and watchers sit. Just beyond that, Children and elders rest in the warmest sleeping pocket, at the outer edges. Sturdier adults take the chill, though no one looks delighted about the honour. Bundles help block drafts, spare hides hang low near the entrance. Wood is stacked where it can dry but not catch sparks. Warmth is built in layers across space, just as it is built in layers across your body. Your back still aches, your hips still complain. The cave is not cosy in the soft modern sense, despite what any romantic painting might suggest. But it has become livable through adjustment. That is the hidden genius of the group. They do not defeat the blizzard. They reduce its reach. They interrupt cold before it becomes dangerous. They protect the small warm centre and make every object serve it. Outside, the storm continues its long white tantrum. Inside, warmth is maintained by humble acts: a hide tucked closer, a coal covered, a wet wrap turned, a child drawn inward, a draught blocked by a basket, a body shifted so another body can sleep. No single act is enough. Together they hold. You curl beneath the shared fur, feeling heat gathered from fire, food, bodies, bedding, stones, and careful hands. It is not dramatic, it is not romantic. It is better than both. It is practical warmth, the kind that lasts because people keep tending it. And in the smoky dimness, while winter spends itself against the cave mouth, you understand that survival often depends on being sensible for a very long time. By the next stretch of dimness, your body has become a list of small complaints, and every item on that list would like personal attention. Your shoulders ache from sleeping curled. Your hips feel bruised by the uneven bedding. Your throat is rough from smoke. Your feet are warmer than before. Thank goodness. But they still throb when you flex them. Even your scalp itches beneath hair that has absorbed enough smoke to qualify as a preserved food. No one in the cave is truly comfortable. The difference between people is only style. Some suffer silently, which seems dignified until you remember they are probably just too tired to speak. Others sigh, stretch, mutter, cough, scratch, and announce every adjustment as if the cave has requested updates. The elders endure with the steady patience of those who have known worse. The children complain honestly, which is irritating but at least efficient. Rest here is fragile because bodies are fragile. Cold tightens old injuries. Smoke irritates eyes and lungs. Damp clothing chills joints. Hunger makes tempers thin. Sleeping on rough bedding leaves muscles stiff and nerves pinched. The cave protects you from the blizzard, but it doesn't become a soft place just because gratitude would be polite. A dependable fact from the study of ancient human remains is that many prehistoric people lived with signs of healed injuries, worn joints, dental trouble, and physical strain. Bones can show old fractures, repetitive stress, arthritis-like changes, and heavy use of the body over years. These people were not simply young hunters leaping beautifully across icy cliffs for a museum mural. They were children, parents, elders, limping survivors, skilled workers, and tired humans who sometimes hurt. You rub your own forearm where a muscle has tightened from carrying wood. The skin is dry and cracked. Near the fire, someone massages an elder's hand, pressing the fingers slowly, bending them toward warmth. The elder complains that the helper is pressing too hard. The helper presses more gently. The elder then complains that it is too gentle. Ah, the continuity of human civilization. A small pouch is open near the hearth. From it comes a pinch of dried plant material, brittle and dark, smelling faintly bitter when warmed between fingers. It may be used in a drink, chewed, rubbed on skin, or simply smelled for comfort. The exact plant depends on region, season, and knowledge carried by the group. Some plants ease coughs, some soothe stomachs, some reduce pain a little. Some do absolutely nothing but taste tragic and make everyone feel proactive, which, honestly, has never gone out of fashion. One interesting glimpse from prehistory is that dental calculus, the hardened plaque preserved on ancient teeth, can sometimes trap microscopic traces of plants, fibers, starches, smoke particles, and other substances. It is not glamorous, but it can reveal what people ate, chewed, or used in daily life. Yes, ancient Tartar can become a tiny archive. History has many libraries, and some of them are in teeth. Let us move gently past that before bedtime becomes dentistry. Beside you. A child coughs after smoke drifts low again, though not as badly as before. Their parent lifts them upright and rubs their back. Someone passes warm water, melted from snow with painful patience and too much fuel. The child sips, grimaces, and leans back into the fur. The parent wipes their nose with a piece of hide that has clearly served many duties and deserves retirement. There is no retirement, there is only reuse. The question remains unsettled among researchers as to how much medical knowledge Paleolithic groups possessed, and how often care involved practical treatment, ritual action, comfort, or some blend of all three. Healed bones and long-survived injuries suggest that people often received support. Plant use is harder to prove in many places, but knowledge of useful materials was likely important. Tonight, you see no boundary between medicine and care. A warm hand, a bitter plant, a story, a better sleeping angle, a shared hide, and a murmured reassurance all belong to the same effort. Your own throat asks for water, but water is rationed by labour. Snow is plentiful outside, absurdly plentiful, offensively plentiful, but turning snow into drinkable warmth consumes fuel and time. A full skin is passed around in careful sips when it reaches you. The liquid is smoky, lukewarm, faintly gritty, and wonderful. You take only a little. The warmth slides down your throat like a small kindness. An older hunter unwraps one knee and studies it near the fire. The joint is swollen, or perhaps always shaped that way now from years of climbing, crouching, running, hauling, and kneeling on stone. A younger person warms both hands, then presses them around the knee. Slow circles, firm pressure, no magic, just warmth, touch, patience. The older hunter closes their eyes, and for once says nothing sarcastic. This may be the strongest evidence that the treatment helps. The cave is full of these quiet remedies. A strip of hide is tightened around a sore wrist. A sleeping child is turned so their nose stays away from smoke. Damp bedding is replaced beneath an elder's back. A person with stomach pain is given less fatty food and a warmer place. Someone chews a fibrous twig until the end phrase, then cleans teeth with it. Because sore gums in winter are nobody's idea of character building. Another person holds a warmed stone wrapped in hide near a cramped muscle. Carefully, carefully, because comfort should not become a burn. You become aware of parasites too, not in a dramatic horror story way, but in the ordinary itchy way that makes everyone slightly resentful. Hair is searched by firelight. Bedding is shaken. Old grass is moved nearer the edge for burning later if fuel allows. Smoke may discourage some insects, but it does not make the group magically spotless. Living close to animals, hides, bedding. And other humans brings tiny companions. A person scratches their neck and is told to stop making it worse. They stop for 3 breaths, then scratch again. Ancient discipline has limits. Pain changes the mood of the cave. It narrows people into themselves. Then care widens them again. The person rubbing the elder's hand receives a better piece of warmed root. The child who coughed is given the safest middle place. The watcher with tired eyes is relieved sooner than planned because smoke has made their head ache. None of this is counted openly, yet everyone notices. A group that ignores weakness becomes weaker. A group that tends weakness keeps more knowledge, more hands, more future. The storm continues outside. Indifferent to sore knees and burning throats, inside, the fire glows low and steady. Your aches remain, but they become less frightening when shared by the cave's slow routines. Rub the joint, sip the water, turn the bedding, warm the hands, loosen the binding. Tell the child the wind is only wind. Even if you are not entirely in the mood to believe it yourself, you lie back, feeling the rough fur against your cheek. Your body is not repaired, it is managed. That is often what survival means. Not a cure, not a miracle, just enough relief to sleep a little, rise when needed, and keep going when the entrance finally opens to the world again. In the dim red wash of the hearth, care moves from hand to hand, and the cave holds not only the strong, but the aching, coughing, limping, itching, stubborn living bodies who must make it through the storm together, when bodies have eaten a little, warmed a little, coughed a little, and complained just enough to prove they are still alive. The cave turns again toward voices, not loud voices. Loudness belongs outside with the storm. Inside, words are softened by smoke, fur, fatigue, and the need not to wake every child who's finally surrendered to sleep after a heroic campaign against rest. The elder who spoke before has gone quiet, but now another person begins, their voices lower, rougher, and threaded with amusement. They do not announce a story. They simply answer a child's earlier question about whether wolves sleep in storms, and somehow that answer grows legs and walks into memory. Soon you're hearing about a wolf that followed a reindeer trail, a young hunter who thought he knew better than the old tracks, and a snowfield that looked flat but hid a stream beneath thin ice. Everyone listening already knows the lesson is coming. No one interrupts. A good lesson wrapped in a story goes down more easily than a lecture. Even in the Stone Age, especially in the Stone Age, perhaps, where nobody can escape by pretending to check messages, it is widely understood among anthropologists that oral tradition was central to societies without writing. Stories could preserve practical knowledge, group identity, moral expectations, humour, warnings, and memories of places or events. Long before marks on tablets or ink on parchment, human voices carried maps, animal behaviour, weather signs, kinship, and rules about not being a fool near thin ice. The cave tonight is not only shelter, it is a classroom with worse seating. The story continues slowly. The foolish young hunter steps where the old woman told him not to step. The ice cracks. You can almost hear it beneath the words, a thin, bright sound under snow. The storyteller pauses, outside. The blizzard fills the pause with a long moan, as if assisting with atmosphere. Very theatrical. The children listen harder. The adults pretend they are not listening, which is obviously false, because no one scrapes tools or shifts bedding until the next words arrive. The hunter, in the story, survives. Of course, though not comfortably. He returns wet, shaking, and humbled. And the old woman makes him sit by the fire while she tells everyone exactly what he did wrong. The group laughs softly. The laughter matters. It travels around the hearth, warm and small. It does not erase fear, hunger, or the storm, but it changes their flavour. Fear shared in silence can grow large. Fear shared in a story becomes something with edges, something people can hold. A delightful oddity from deep time is that finger flutings, marks made by dragging fingers through soft cave surfaces, sometimes appear in caves and may include traces made by children as well as adults, whether they were play, practice, ritual, marking, or all of those at once. They remind us that people did not simply sit in caves being solemn survival statues. They touched walls, made patterns, experimented, laughed, perhaps got told to stop smearing clay everywhere. Some things are universal. Another voice joins after the first tale fades. This one is a teasing account of someone who once carried embers so carefully that they forgot the meat packet and had to walk back while everyone mocked them for days. The person being mocked is present, older now, and grunts in protest from under a hide. That only makes the listeners smile more. The tale is not cruel. It is a social knot tied with humour, it says. We remember you. We remember your mistake. We kept you anyway. Kindly never forget the meet again. There is ongoing discussion among researchers about how far back structured storytelling. Myth and formal teaching can be inferred from archaeological evidence. We cannot excavate a bedtime tale from ash. We cannot place a voice in a display case, but we can see symbolic objects, art, tools that require teaching, long-distance knowledge, and cooperative life, all of which suggest rich communication in your cave. The need is obvious. Children must learn what elders know before the elders are gone. Adults must remember roots and warnings. The group must keep itself emotionally intact while the storm makes the outside world vanish. The storytelling shifts between instruction and comfort so gently that the boundary disappears. One tale describes how to notice a snow-covered hollow by the way grass bends at its edge. Another tells of a bird call that means open water nearby. Another explains why you never sleep too near the entrance unless your job is to listen. There are jokes folded into warnings, warnings folded into memories, memories folded into images of animals and ancestors and foolish cousins. You listen with your cheek against fur, eyes half closed. The cave walls flicker. The story voices seem to come from more than one place, bouncing softly from stone. The storm outside grows less absolute. It is still loud, still dangerous, still waiting. But the voices lay human shape over it. The white silence beyond the entrance is answered by names, places, and remembered footsteps. Snow may cover tracks outside, words uncover them inside. A child asks whether the young hunter from the first story was truly foolish or only unlucky. This produces a murmur of approval, because it is a better question than anyone expected from someone who recently tried to eat snow from a boot. The storyteller answers that bad luck finds everyone, but foolishness opens the door and invites it to sit by the fire. A few adults hum agreement. The child considers this, then asks if wolves are foolish. Someone says wolves are hungry, which is different. Another adds that some people are both. Laughter again, gentle as embers. The stories are not all warnings. One is about summer berries and a child whose mouth turned purple from eating too many. One is about a woman who could mimic cranes so well that the birds answered her. One is about a hidden valley where the wind is softer and the stones shine after rain. This last one makes the cave quieter. Everyone likes hearing of softer wind, even if the place is far, even if the path is buried now. The thought of it rests in the mind like a warm coal. You notice how stories arrange emotion. First fear, then laughter. First hunger, then memory of food, first cold, then remembered summer. The group cannot change the storm, but it can change what fills the waiting. Words become a kind of insulation. They do not warm the fingers directly, but they keep the mind from wandering too far into dread. The fire settles lower, and voices follow it down. Sentences lengthen, pauses widen. Someone repeats part of an older tale, not from the beginning, only the middle, because everyone knows the rest. The children's questions slow. A watcher listens with one ear to the entrance and one ear to the story, holding spear and memory at the same time. The elder with the charm has closed their eyes, but their lips move along with a line spoken by another. The story belongs to more than one mouth. You begin to drift. In your mind. The foolish hunter steps near thin ice, then becomes the shadow of a wolf, then becomes the bend of grass under snow. The cave wall glows red. The storm breathes beyond stone. A soft voice says that tracks are not only marks in the ground, they are also what one person leaves in another person's remembering. And so the cave stays human, not because it is warm enough, or safe enough, or comfortable enough. though everyone is doing their smoky best. It stays human because voices cross the dark. They tease, teach, warn, comfort, and carry the world that snow has hidden. While the blizzard erases the outside, the stories draw it again, patiently, in the minds of everyone curled around the fire. The longer the cave shelters you, the more clearly it reveals that shelter is not the same as safety. It is tempting. When the wind is outside and the fire is inside, to let the mind grow too comfortable. Stone overhead feels solid, bedding feels familiar. The hearth makes its small sun on the floor. People breathe close together, and the storm seems held at the entrance like an angry guest with no invitation. But the cave has its own dangers, quieter than blizzard wind and sometimes less honest. You notice one of them when a tiny pebble drops from somewhere above and clicks against stone near the side wall. It is not large, no one leaps up. Still. Several eyes turn toward the ceiling. The watcher lifts the burning end of a stick and peers at the roof. Shadows crawl across cracks and ridges. Another pebble falls, smaller than the first. Then nothing. The cave returns to fire sounds and breathing. No one sleeps under that spot. A solid archaeological and geological reality is that caves and rock shelters can be unstable. Freeze and thaw cycles, water seepage, root growth, earthquakes, erosion. And simple gravity can loosen stone over time. Prehistoric people using caves had to judge not only animals, smoke, and cold, but also the reliability of the roof and walls. A cave may feel eternal, but eternity occasionally drops a rock on the floor, just to keep everyone humble. The group shifts, bedding away from the suspect patch. A branch and a stone are placed there as a warning so no half-asleep person rolls into it later. The adjustment is calm, practiced, and faintly annoyed, as if the cave has committed bad manners. You help drag one hide closer to the centre. Grass bedding is gathered and spread again. A sleeping child grumbles because their warm hollow has been moved. Their parent whispers that stones falling on heads are worse than being relocated. The child appears unconvinced, but history supports the parent. The ceiling is not the only concern. Damp has been creeping along the cave's left side, where water seeps through tiny cracks and beads on the wall before sliding down in slow threads. It darkens the floor and makes the bedding smell sour. Damp invites cold, rot, insects, and slippery footing. Someone steps there in the dimness and nearly falls, catching themselves on a bundle of wood. The bundle collapses with a clatter loud enough to wake 3 people and offend everyone. A dry corner becomes more valuable with every hour. The group rearranges again. Food bundles are raised on stones and bark, away from the wet floor. Spare hides are folded with the driest inside. Tools that rust in the modern sense are not the issue, but bone, wood, sinew, fibre, and hide all suffer from damp. A wet cord stretches badly. A softened binding can fail. A mouldy food packet can turn a future meal into a very ancient regret. An odd little clue from excavated shelters is that ancient floors can preserve layers of ash. Trampled sediment, plant bedding, bones, and waste in ways that show repeated cleaning, burning, dumping, or shifting activity zones. In other words, prehistoric housekeeping existed. Though it did not involve cute baskets labelled cave stuff, people moved mess away from living areas, refreshed bedding, cleared hearths, and managed scraps because filth attracts problems. Comfort and hygiene were not modern inventions. The scented candle aisle was. But that is another matter. You become aware of the bedding itself as a risk. Dry grass insulates, but it also burns. The fire has behaved for now, mostly because people have watched it with the suspicion it deserves. A spark leaps and lands on a loose tuft near the hearth. A hand slaps it out instantly. The smell of singed grass rises, sharp and brief. Everyone stares at the ember until it dies completely. Fire is warmth. Alarm, light, cooking, and danger. The same friendly glow can turn a sleeping area into panic if given one careless moment. There is continuing debate among specialists over how organised cave maintenance was in different Paleolithic communities, especially whether cleaning patterns reflect planned domestic routines, ritual clearing, practical waste control, or simply repeated occupation by people doing what needed doing. The evidence rarely gives one tidy answer, but tonight, the reason for cleaning is not mysterious. Ash builds up, bones attract animals, damp bedding chills, sparks find loose grass. Tiny pests adore leftovers. If the cave is to hold you, you must help it hold you well. Food spoilage becomes another quiet worry. The storm keeps the air cold, which helps, but meat and fat still need attention. Smoke preserves some foods, but damp can ruin others. Scraps left near warmth turn sour. Marrow bones are cracked and used, or placed where they can freeze, or set aside for later boiling if fuel allows. No piece is simply forgotten. The nose becomes a tool. Someone unwraps a packet, sniffs, frowns, and holds it toward another adult. A second sniff, a shrug, still good enough, comforting words. Unless you think about them for too long, tiny creatures continue their campaign. A rustle near the stored grass makes you turn your head. This time the culprit is seen more clearly. A small rodent with shining eyes and extraordinary confidence. It freezes, whiskers trembling, for one suspended heartbeat. Human and mouse regard each other across the grand theatre of prehistory. Then it bolts. A child giggles. An adult hisses for quiet and moves the food again. The mouse, no doubt, considers this rude. Parasites are harder to see. Bedding is shaken when people have strength. Hair is searched by firelight. A piece of old grass is carried toward the hearth and burned, releasing a bitter smoke that makes everyone cough and feel morally superior to insects. Whether it works fully is another matter. It works emotionally, which in a cave during a blizzard should not be dismissed. You also begin to notice social danger, the kind that comes from too many people in too little space for too long. Irritation gathers like smoke. Someone's tool has been moved. Someone's place near the fire has been taken. Someone keeps coughing into the shared hide. Someone else snores with heroic confidence. The group manages this with murmurs, jokes, small corrections, and the occasional sharp whisper. A community survives not by avoiding irritation, which would require everyone to be fictional, but by keeping irritation smaller than the storm outside. A stone pops in the fire, cracked by heat after holding hidden moisture. A tiny chip jumps beyond the hearthstones, no harm done. But the sound snaps everyone awake for a breath. The firekeeper removes the suspect stone with a stick and curses it softly, without using any words that would disturb our gentle bedtime standards. Another stone is chosen, drier and older from the warm side of the hearth. Even rocks require references. The cave is watched now in every direction. Entrance, ceiling, damp wall, hearth, food bundles, bedding edge, tool cluster, children, elders. It sounds exhausting because it is. Yet the watchfulness becomes shared, spread across many eyes and instincts. One person sees the smoke, another hears the pebble, another smells the food, another feels the draught. Safety is distributed through attention. You lie down again after the bedding is shifted from the dangerous ceiling spot. The new place is slightly less comfortable. A branch presses at your hip. The hide does not cover your shoulder as well, but above you. The roof looks more solid, and that is an improvement worth accepting. Outside, the blizzard continues to batter the cave mouth. Inside, the shelter has shown its teeth. Falling stone, wet corners, sparks, pests, spoiled food, frayed tempers, careless tools, and still, the group adapts. It clears, moves, watches, repairs, warns, and laughs when laughter is cheaper than anger. The cave is never fully safe, but it is safer because people refuse to be passive inside it. You close your eyes with that knowledge tucked beside you. Not perfect safety, managed safety, human safety, the kind built from alertness, memory, and many small hands correcting the dark before it becomes disaster. At some point, the storm changes its voice. It does not stop. Not yet. The cave mouth still breathes white, and wind still scrapes along the stone, but the roar has thinned. The gusts arrive with longer pauses between them. Snow still blows past the entrance, yet not with the same wild force that made the world disappear. The hanging hide no longer snaps like an angry wing. It lifts, sighs, falls back, and for the first time in what feels like several lifetimes, the cave seems to hear itself again. You wake to that difference before you understand it. Your eyes open into dim red light. The fire is low, guarded by embers and a careful little flame. Around you, bodies remain curled in hides. But the tension in them has softened. The watcher is listening, not with alarm now, but with a wary hope. The elder near the hearth has raised their head. Even the child pressed against your calf seems quieter, as if sleep itself has noticed that the storm is losing breath. No one rushes outside. That would be the sort of decision that gives future storytellers material, usually at your expense. A weakening blizzard can still hide deep drifts, unstable snow, ice sheets, and animals moving again after sheltering. The world beyond the cave may look peaceful while quietly preparing to drop you into a hollow up to your chest. So the group waits, listens, and lets caution sit beside hope. A dependable point about late Ice Age life is that people tracking animals and travelling through snowy terrain had to read subtle environmental signs: wind direction, snow texture, cloud brightness, track freshness, ice firmness, and changes in animal movement. Survival depended not only on strength but on close observation. A storm's ending was not one moment. It was a sequence of clues. The first clue is sound, the second is light. The entrance, which has been mostly black and white motion, now holds a dull silver glow. It is not direct sunlight, but the storm clouds above the hidden valley have thinned enough for day to press through them. The cave interior grows faintly clearer. The wall marks from earlier appear again. The bedding looks worse in the pale light, flatter, dirtier, and more honest. Smoke stains hang under the roof. Ashes spread beyond the hearth. Food bundles are tied tight. Tools lie where tired hands left them. The cave, seen after days of firelight, looks like a place that has worked very hard. You sit up slowly. Every joint offers a report. Your back protests. Your neck cracks softly. Your feet, wrapped and tucked through long hours, feel tender but alive. You roll your shoulders under the fur cloak and smell smoke so deeply embedded that you may personally season the air for a week. Around you, others stir. Nobody looks heroic. They look puffy-eyed, sore, hungry, and quietly pleased to be breathing. This is what survival often looks like before anyone turns it into a legend. A curious detail from snowy landscapes is that fresh snow can preserve tracks beautifully once the wind settles, creating a sudden record of who moved during and after the storm. Animals that passed near the cave may leave stories written in paws, hooves, claws, and tails, for people who know how to read them. The snow outside is not blank, it is a page, though admittedly a freezing one with poor customer service. The watcher lifts the hanging hide a handspan. Cold enters, but it is less violent. Snow no longer blasts across the floor. Instead, a few flakes drift in and settle on the dark stone. Everyone waits. The watcher listens. No growl, no cracking branch, no sudden collapse of drift from above. They lift the hide higher and peer out. The cave fills with pale light. Not warm light. Let us not become sentimental too quickly. It is still winter light, thin and grey. reflecting from snow with a sharp brightness that makes eyes water. But after the smoky dimness, it feels almost impossible. The entrance reveals a transformed world. The slope outside has risen under deep drifts. Stones are buried to rounded humps. Bushes bend under white weight. The path you climbed is gone. The air is full of tiny floating crystals, moving slowly now instead of sideways. Beyond them, shapes begin to return: a dark tree trunk, a broken branch, the faint curve of a ridge. Discussion continues among archaeologists over how often groups waited in caves after severe storms before resuming travel, hunting or gathering. The decision would have depended on weather, food, fuel, group condition, terrain, and animal movement. A cave might hold people safely, but staying too long could exhaust supplies. Leaving too soon could be worse. Tonight, or rather this pale, almost morning. That balance sits in every face. The first person to step near the entrance does not go far. They test the snow with a spear shaft. The shaft sinks deeply before finding ground. A low murmur passes through the group. Deep snow means slow travel. It also means hidden obstacles. Another person checks the overhang above the cave mouth for snow build-up that might slide. Someone points to a drift packed against one side, where a small tunnel of air remains near the rock. The cave has not been sealed, which feels like a blessing worth noticing quietly. A pair of adults wrap themselves tightly and step just outside, staying close enough that their bodies remain half-framed by the entrance. The cold grabs them at once. You see shoulders rise, faces turn away, eyes narrow. One bends to examine the nearest snow surface. Another scans for tracks. Their footprints punch deep holes in the drift. Steam rises from their breathing. Behind them, the cave watches as one body. They find tracks near a sheltered ledge, partly dusted over, small paw prints, perhaps fox. A line of tiny marks near the wall, likely rodent. Farther out, something larger has crossed the slope, but the wind has blurred it. Wolf. Maybe. Deer. Maybe. The track is too damaged for certainty. The adults study it anyway, because uncertainty is not useless. It tells you what to watch for. Inside, people begin preparing without fully committing to departure. That is a very human middle state, not leaving yet, but no longer only waiting. Bedding is shaken. Dry pieces are separated from damp. Tools are gathered and checked. The remaining food is counted again. A hide is held up in the pale light and inspected for sparks damage. A child asks whether they can go outside. Several adults answer no at once, which is efficient and emotionally devastating. The fire is not abandoned, embers are protected. If the group leaves later, they may carry fire or bank what remains. If they stay another night, the hearth must continue. Hope does not remove chores. It adds more of them. Someone melts more snow while the fire is still strong enough. Someone repairs a binding loosened by days of damp. Someone else scrapes ash into a safer pile, clearing the living area so nothing smoulders under bedding. You crawl to the entrance and look out from behind the adults. Cold light strikes your face. The air smells different. Still icy, still clean and metallic, but less furious. Beneath the smoke clinging to your hair, you smell snow, broken wood, and the faint sharpness of exposed stone. The world has been remade in white. It is beautiful in the way dangerous things can be beautiful from a protected doorway. Your eyes search for the path that brought you here. It is gone, but not entirely. A memory of its direction remains in the slope. The trees, the shape of the ridge. The elders will compare that memory with wind, drifts and tracks. The hunters will think of where animals may move now, hungry and stiff after the storm. Parents will think of children's feet. Everyone will think of food. The cave behind you feels suddenly small, crowded, smoky, and precious. It held the group while the sky spent itself. It filled your lungs with smoke and your bedding with grit. It protected you imperfectly, which is the only kind of protection the ancient world offers. You look back at the hearth, at the flattened sleeping places, at the wall shadows fading in grey light, and you understand that the shelter is already becoming memory. The wind weakens again. A patch of brightness moves across the snow outside. Not direct sun, perhaps, but the promise of it behind thinning cloud. No one cheers. People save energy, but faces shift. The child in the middle smiles. The elder with the charm closes the hand round it and breathes out slowly. The watcher lowers the spear tip. The blizzard has not ended in a clean dramatic curtain fall. It has loosened. It has stepped back. It has allowed the world to return in fragments light. Sound, tracks, ridge, tree, path, breath. And now the group must decide when to step from stone into that changed white world, carrying smoke in their clothes, soreness in their bones, and hope that is careful enough to survive. The first step outside is not grand. It is careful, cramped, and slightly humiliating, because your foot sinks deeper than expected, and your balance immediately becomes a public matter. Someone catches your elbow. You pretend this was all part of testing the snow, a scientific procedure performed with great dignity. Nobody believes you, but nobody laughs too loudly either. Everyone is moving slowly. The air strikes your face clean and cold. After the cave, it feels enormous. Your lungs fill with a brightness that almost hurts. Smoke still clings to your hair, your fur, your skin, and probably your personality. But beyond it you smell snow, broken branches, frozen earth, and the faint resin of trees damaged by wind. The world is quiet now, not silent, but muffled. Snow has covered sharp edges, softened stones, buried the path, and turned familiar ground into something dreamlike and suspicious. Behind you, the cave mouth waits dark in the hillside, breathing out a thin thread of smoke. It looks smaller from outside. How strange. After it became your whole world for days, inside, there is ash, flattened bedding, damp hides, old smells, wall shadows, and the warm dent of human presence. Outside, there is space, risk, hunger, and light. You stand between the two, blinking in the pale morning after many nights. A reliable conclusion from archaeology is that prehistoric humans were highly adaptable, using shelters, tools, fire, clothing, shared labour, and environmental knowledge to survive harsh climates. They were not cartoonish cave dwellers grunting beside rocks. They were skilled observers, makers, carers, trackers, storytellers, and planners. The cave behind you was never just a hole. It was a temporary living system shaped by human judgment under pressure. The group does not leave all at once. The adults first test the snow near the entrance, then the slope below, then the path toward the trees. A spear shaft probes drifts. Footing is checked before children move. Bundles are tightened. Remaining food is divided into smaller loads. Tools are counted by touch and sight. Embers are prepared for carrying, wrapped and protected, because no one wants to depend on making fire from nothing in wet cold unless absolutely necessary. The little sun from the cave must travel if it can. An unusual but lovely detail from prehistoric life is that personal ornaments such as shells, teeth, beads, and pendants sometimes travelled long distances from their sources, whether through movement, exchange, gift-giving, or memory. Small objects could carry places with them. The elder's charm clicked in darkness beside the fire. Maybe just such a thing. A little piece of elsewhere held through storm and smoke. You notice it now against their chest, dull in the winter light. The children are brought to the entrance and wrapped more tightly. One immediately wants to step into the deepest drift, because children can identify danger and fun as the same category with impressive speed. An adult steers them toward packed snow near the rock. Another child looks back into the cave and asks if the wall animals will still be there. Someone answers that stone remembers. It is not a technical answer, it is the right one. Experts still discuss how memory, landscape, and repeated shelter U-shaped Ice Age movement. Did certain caves become known landmarks across generations? Were some shelters remembered through stories, marks, routes, or seasonal visits? How did people decide when a place was ordinary shelter and when it held deeper meaning? Evidence gives fragments. But as you look back at the cave, it is easy to imagine returning, not because it was comfortable, it was not, but because it held. The group begins moving in a line, the strongest break trail, stepping down snow where others can follow. The elderly move near the middle, close to support. Children are placed where hands can reach them. Bundles creak, hides rustle. Tools knock softly against one another. Breath rises in pale clouds. The cave's smoke thins behind you, and the cold, bright world opens ahead. The snow has preserved traces. Near the ledge, tiny paw prints loop and vanish. Farther down, a larger track crosses the slope, clearer now in the calmer light. The hunters crouch to inspect it. Perhaps deer, perhaps something heavier. The track is partly drifted, but it gives direction. Hunger sharpens attention. The storm has ended, but survival has not. It rarely sends a closing announcement. You look over the slope and try to see what changed. A tree has fallen, its dark trunk split and exposed. A drift blocks the easier descent. The stream below may be frozen or hidden. The old path is only a memory under whiteness, yet the ridgeline remains. The rocks remain. The sense of direction held by elders and hunters remains. The world is altered, not erased. Your body feels strange after the cave. Stiff, smoky, sore, but awake. Every step pulls at tired muscles. Your hips remember the hard bedding. Your throat remembers smoke. Your feet remember cold. And yet there is relief in motion. The cave taught stillness, patience, shared warmth, and caution. Now the morning teaches balance, attention, and the careful pleasure of open air. No one speaks much at first. The quiet outside is too large. It deserves listening. Snow slips from a branch with a soft thud. Somewhere far off, a bird calls once, brief and thin. The sound feels astonishing. Life beyond the cave did not stop. It sheltered, waited, endured, and now begins again in small signals. The group pauses at a safer shelf of rock. From here, the cave is visible above, a dark oval in white stone. The smoke thread is almost gone. Someone may return later to clear bedding, gather what was left, or use the shelter again. Or perhaps another group will find the old ash, or an animal will nose through the entrance. The cave belongs to time more than to anyone. You carry with you more than tools and hides. You carry the memory of the fire turning walls alive, the sound of wind made strange by stone, the child's foot against your calf, the taste of smoked meat, the sting of bad air, the elder's charm clicking softly. The small rodent with criminal confidence, the warmth built from bodies and grass and patience. These are not museum objects. They are experiences pressed into the mind, human and ordinary and ancient. The blizzard is over, but its lesson remains. Shelter was not a simple gift. It was made from noticing. The right floor patch, the safer ceiling, the smoke path, the dry bedding, the guarded food, the shared hide, the quiet watch, the story told when fear grew too large. Survival came not from one heroic moment, but from many careful ones. You take another step into the white morning. Snow squeaks under your foot. The cold bites your cheeks. Ahead, the group moves slowly toward whatever food, danger, and shelter the changed day may offer. Behind, the cave waits in shadow, holding ash and warmth, and the proof that through the long storm, you were here, you slept, you woke, and you came out alive. And now, as the trail draws gently away from the cave, the sharp edges of the story begin to soften. The wind that once roared at the entrance becomes only a pale breath moving over snow. The fire that snapped and smoked becomes a low-remembered glow, warm enough to rest beside, quiet enough to leave behind. The cave mouth grows smaller in the distance. No longer a threat, no longer a whole world, just a dark shelter in a white hillside, holding the echo of tired voices and the faint scent of ash. You do not need to walk much farther now. The difficult part has passed. The storm has spent its strength. The watchers can lower their shoulders. The children can blink into the light. The elders can feel the morning on their faces and know that another night has been crossed. Your own breath slows. In, cool and clean. Out, soft and smoky. The snow around you is still bright, but not harsh now. It glimmers quietly, covering stones, branches, tracks, and old fear with one calm layer. Somewhere beyond the ridge, animals move again. Somewhere under the drifts, roots wait for thaw. Somewhere in memory, the cave fire continues to glow, but it asks nothing more from you. You have carried cold, hunger, smoke, and worry, and you may set them down now. The ancient night has closed behind you. The white morning opens ahead, gentle and wide. Let the images fade, the fur beneath your cheek, the ember in the ash, the soft murmur of stories, the hush after the storm. Let the cave become distant. Let the snow become quiet. Let the last thread of smoke rise. Thinner and thinner, into the pale winter air sweet dreams.